Welcome to the Louder Tales podcast. We hope you enjoy today's show, so sit back, relax, and enjoy. Here's your hosts, Rainbow and Tim.
Jason Smith?
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
There we go.
All right, well, I guess we're on.
Well,
A little bit too late if we didn't want that. All right, hello, everybody. Welcome back, Louder Tales podcast. I'm Tim. We have
I'm
the
Rainbow.
lovely Rainbow, and we have a guest here, Jason Smith.
Hello.
So, Jason, I found you on an app. I won't say which one, but we'll say it's pretty interesting. I kind of got interested in what your bio, your history. So, tell us a little bit about yourself, what you did, what brought you here, if you've been here your whole life or whatever.
Sure. So let's start at the beginning.
All right.
And at the beginning, back in 2002, I was struggling with some issues financially. I was a young kid at the time. I hadn't learned how to manage money. I was out on my own for the first time, and it got so bad. The stress was so big for me that it led to some depression.
Yeah.
And in that depression, I was going to take my life. And at the time, I was selling Cutco cutlery, so I had a bag of knives that were right there, and I thought, shoot, I'm just going to go take my life right now. And just at the moment that I was about to cut my wrist, my pet guinea pig in the other room started weaking.
Yeah.
And when I heard that squeak, something caused me to stop in that moment. I didn't know what it was.
Wow.
But the thought that came to me was, there's no one who can take better care of that animal than me. So I stopped my attempted suicide and cleaned up the mess, went back sobbing on the pillow, taking care of my guinea pig. My roommate comes in and he's like, what's going on? He calls the cops. He calls my parents.
Yeah.
They both show up. The police
Yeah.
officer said, son, did you try to hurt yourself? And I said, yeah. And he goes, well, you've got two choices. You can either go with me or you can go with your parents. What's it going to be?
And
So
you were how old?
I was 20.
Wow.
I'm 42 now.
Yeah.
So this happened 22 years ago.
Yeah.
And at that point, I chose to leave with my dad because my parents were divorced. And my dad checked me into Flower Hospital in Sylvania, Ohio, and I was admitted for depression. I spent an entire week there. Maybe it was 3 weeks. I don't remember. But I do know this. I missed Easter Sunday with my family. My sister had just graduated from basic training in the Army, and so I didn't get to see her homecoming while I was in the psychiatric ward. And so I was like, this isn't good. Because for me, I wasn't a Christian then. For me, it was... Easter was all about the Easter bunny, candy, and spending time with family. It had nothing to do with Jesus at the time.
Yeah.
But I felt I was missing out on that. And so eventually I got out and I had to go into counseling. And while I was in counseling, I started reading books about how to perform self-care before self-care was even a term that we recognize today.
Right.
And so I took myself out to movies. I would go out to dinner by myself, and I was just treating myself, and eventually talking to my sister and hearing that confidence that she had in her voice.
Right.
I said, there's something different about her that I want that.
Yeah.
So I went to talk to a recruiter, and the recruiter said, look, you can't come into the military if you're taking these antidepressant drugs. You're going to have to go off of your drugs. You're going to have to stop your counseling. And when you're asked at MEPS, you're going to tell them, no, never, not at all. That's right. That's what you're going to say.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay. And I was very hesitant about this. I thought, there's no way.
Yeah.
No. I can't do this.
Right.
But I did anyway.
Right.
And I went to MEPS. I did pretty well. And I decided I wanted to be a veterinary technician. In the official MOS in the military, it's called an animal care specialist.
Okay.
Back then it was 91 Tango. They changed it to 68 Tango while I was in the service. But I was like, my guinea pig saved my life. So I want to give back to animals, and I want to take care of animals. That was what led me into the military. I joined October 2002, went to Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri for basic training. It was there during the 7th week of basic training. We had a free day away. And this free day away was for any of the soldiers that were in my platoon, in my company. If you were on your best behavior, you got to go out, ride this bus, and go to this church that was somewhere in Missouri. I don't even know the name of it today.
Oh, wow.
But we went to this church, and they were hosting this free day away for all the soldiers. We got to go bowling. We got to eat all the contraband that we wanted to eat. Candy, soda, cakes, all that stuff. And then after that, we had to come back to the church, to the fellowship hall for a dinner. And that dinner was completely catered by them. We ate, and the only requirement was we had to go to the night service. And it was when we went to the night service that the pastor did the message, and he had an invitation. And that's when he said, if you want to know the Lord Jesus, if you want to get rid of your past and all these problems, and you're repentant for your sin, just raise your hand. And so this was every eye bowed, every eye closed.
Right.
I raised my hand. He's like, that's great. I see your hand, see your hand, see your hand. He's like, now if you'll do this one thing, if you were bold enough to raise your hand, if you'll come down to the front. And my brain is telling me, are you nuts? I do not want to announce this in front of my whole platoon.
It's scary.
It is. It's terrifying.
Yeah.
Because you think, as a sinner, you think, oh my gosh, people are going to think that I'm the worst human being.
Right.
They're going to think less of me, whatever. And I got up and I went down there, prayed the prayer with the pastor, and that's when I got saved. And that was when I had this enlightening moment that it wasn't the guinea pig that saved my life.
I got goosebumps.
It was God who was speaking through the guinea pig.
Absolutely.
At that time. Wow. And he was leading me down this path to get me to him.
Yep.
And so it was in that story that I think all of this, where I am today, began. So I was in the military. I served at Osan Air Base, Korea for 1 year. And then after that, I was looking for a duty station where I could go. I was like, hey, it would be cost effective for the military if they just send me to Hawaii. It's on the way back to the States, so I could just go right there.
Sure.
So I put in for Hawaii. I put in for Alaska. I put in for Italy. I put in for Spain. I put in for all these places because as a vet tech, veterinary services in the Army is only supplied by the Army.
Right.
But they supply it to all branches of the military. So I could be stationed on an Air Force base, which I was in Korea.
Right.
You could be on a Navy base, a Marine base, or an Army base.
Nice.
And so I was like, I'm going to go wherever I can. Naples, Italy, that would be awesome.
Heck yeah.
So
the pasta over there, I heard, is amazing.
And these are all the places I wanted. So I emailed my branch manager. I give him my list of 20 locations because I'm like, I'm taking control of my destiny. I'm going to go somewhere that I want to go. And he emailed me back. He said, you might not be able to get any of those. So if there's any CONUS that you might want to go to, let me know.
Yeah.
And I said, okay. So I started searching around. I found a vet tech position, or a vet clinic rather, excuse me, slow down. I found a vet tech position at Scott Air Force Base in Illinois.
Oh, okay.
And so I reached out to them. I said, hey, do you have a position available? And they said, we don't at this clinic, but you might try our headquarters at Fort Knox, Kentucky. I had no idea that Scott Air Force Base was connected with Fort Knox at all. But as soon as they told me that, I reached out to the first sergeant. He said, we'll get you on orders. We have an opening. Come on down.
Oh, nice.
So I was on orders, came to Fort Knox. I'm like, this is only 6 hours from home.
Yeah.
I'm originally from Toledo, Ohio.
Oh,
so,
okay.
I'm like, I can go home
Yeah.
whenever I want.
Yeah, weekend pass.
Yeah.
Heck yeah.
I was like, let's do that. So that's how I ended up here in Kentucky. I've stayed here. It was probably around 2006 when my pastor at Abundant Life Church, the pastor then was Pastor Marty Squires, and she was delivering a message, and she said, God's going to inspire some of you to start businesses in this church. And when I heard that, it resonated with me.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm in the military. I do leadership. This is my thing. I could start a business.
Yeah.
And so naturally, I was drawn to pet care businesses. And when I did a Google search online to find out, what businesses I could start, I ended up on entrepreneur.com, and they had a section for animal care businesses. Clicked on it. At the top of the page, I kid you not, it said, "You could be a professional pooper scooper."
Wow.
And I thought, oh my gosh, that is a great idea. And I can't tell you, and this is why I thought it was a great idea. There was one time that the military police came down to the Fort Knox clinic and said, we need somebody to ride with us down to one of the housing areas because we need your professional opinion about whether this yard is representative of animal abuse.
Oh.
And so I went down and I did the ride along, got
Yeah.
there, and I saw that 1, there was a tie out for the dog. 2, the yard was a mess. And what I learned, I didn't know this as a pet owner prior to the military. I didn't
Right.
know this until I became a vet tech. But dog waste can transmit disease to humans.
Right.
Yep.
Things like parasites,
Yeah.
roundworm, hookworm, giardia, and a bunch of other things that don't come to the top of my mind right
Right.
now.
Yeah.
But it's what's called zoonotic diseases. And so these zoonotic diseases could be brought into your house. And like the worms, for example, hookworms can come in through your feet if you walk barefoot in a yard that's infected with hookworms.
Wow.
Roundworms, on the other hand, you'd have to somehow ingest it. So how do you ingest that? That would be like if your dogs got it on their feet and then they jumped up on you,
Yeah,
you touched it, and
right.
without realizing it, you
Later.
touched
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that can
Yeah.
happen.
Yeah. So, and then you've got fleas, which
Right.
carry tapeworm. And so if you bring
Wow.
the fleas in the house and then you accidentally swallow a flea, then you could end up with tapeworms.
Yeah.
So I was like, this is a needed service. People don't realize the hazard of leaving the dog waste in the yard. Most people, if you were to ask them, they're like, oh, no, that's
It's
just
just
fertilizer
oh my
for the
God.
yard, right?
No, it's not.
That's what they'll say. But over the years, when I was doing this service for people, I would see where yes, there's nitrogen content in the waste, but
Yeah,
when
but
you
it's-
have too much and it's concentrated in one spot, it turns your grass yellow.
Yep.
Yeah.
It will kill your grass. The urine from the dogs will kill your grass.
Right.
So by keeping your yard continually clean, you're reducing that, and you're reducing the amount of pathogens in your yard. So you're making it a safe place for people and for pets. And that's why I started Petcore Professional Pet Care, and I ran that for 12 years from 2007 to 2019. In 2019, I was kind of having a bit of a midlife crisis or an existential crisis where I thought, I don't want to be known as the pooper scooper guy.
Yeah.
That is not, there's more to my life than just cleaning up dog waste and pet sitting and those things. And so I really struggled. I didn't know what I was going to do. And I thought it would be a failure or admitting failure if I went back to the workforce.
Ah.
And I kept listening to all these podcasts. One podcast, the podcast host just recently passed away. His name was Dan Miller from 48 Days to the Work You Love. And Dan was talking about it one day, and I remember him saying that you should never feel like going back to the workforce is admitting failure. You should see this as you gained skills as a business owner.
Right.
And maybe that didn't work out, but you go back and you find work that you love and you do that work, then that's going to help you to do better in life. And
Right.
I was like, okay, well, maybe that's what I needed to hear.
Yeah.
And so I eventually made that decision in June 2019 to close Petcore, and I got a job as an assistant manager at Panera Bread.
Okay.
And the only reason I went there is when I was a teenager, I worked at Panera, and I thought I can take my military experience, my experience of working there in the past,
Right.
and come back.
Apply it up the chain.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so I did.
Yeah.
Got in as an assistant manager, worked down here in Elizabethtown.
Okay.
And I did that up until the pandemic. When the pandemic hit, everybody was crazy. Everybody was crazy. Whether you were on the right or the left, everybody was crazy.
Yep.
And I just happened to be one of those crazy anti-maskers. And it was weird because before I was an anti-masker, my mom sent me a mask that she had custom made, and I wore it before there was ever a mask mandate at Panera. As soon as Panera, this was about 5 months into the pandemic. So everybody else is wearing masks but Panera. And in May of 2019, they said, all right, you got to wear masks. Well, now I'm being forced to wear it.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
so
that's a whole nother ball.
Yeah. Yeah.
and so I was like, all right, I'm not doing this. And then they started telling me I had to take my employees' temperatures when they came in. I'm like, I work with adults. I am not a babysitter for adults. They should know. And I preach this. If people come to work, don't come to work sick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't.
That's an automatic.
Don't come. Whether you have COVID, flu, you just have a cold, stay home.
Stop.
You are
Yeah.
no good to me or
Right.
to the staff if you're coming in and you're in a weakened state.
Especially
in
a
a
food.
food. Yeah. It's
Stay home. I don't have to tell you. I had
Right.
one girl come in one day. And
Oh, no, there's people you have to tell.
yeah.
This one
Sometimes
girl-
you have to write it out in crayon.
Yes.
I had associates like that. So
Yeah, I had this one girl. She came in one day and she had sniffles. Her eyes were watering. It was terrible, and she looked pitiful. And she was trying to set up everything for the day. And I said, "Are you okay?" And she said, "I really don't think I'm going to make it today." I said, "Go home." And she's like, "But I feel so bad." I said, "You're no good to me if you can't take care of yourself. Go home."
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah. That's a tough one, especially during COVID. People needed their job,
Yeah.
especially the ones who got to keep their jobs. You know, I was one of the fortunate ones. I was forced to work because I worked for the exchange. So I had to tolerate the mask.
Yeah.
Yeah, the irony is they said that her job was essential because it sold alcohol.
Yeah.
Wow.
Alcohol's a necessity.
Yes.
And I was like, that doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure we can get by without alcohol. But no, there's actually,
Yeah.
if people are so alcoholics, they're addicted to it and they go through withdrawals because they can't get alcohol. They're going to do more harm than good. And man, that just sounds backwards, but it's real.
Well, they looked at it as it was more money because people were drinking more.
That's true
And
too. Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm going to say it out loud. AFES, their standards went from customer first to money first. And it just,
Yeah.
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 You know, it is what it is.
They tried telling me that I had to wear a mask outside. I'm outside by myself delivering mail with nobody around.
you know,
What am I see people in their cars still by themselves with a mask on.
Back then, I criticized these people. Today, I have compassion for
Yeah,
them. And,
because they're kind of stuck.
and I get it. And I shouldn't judge them, and they shouldn't judge me.
Right.
If that's what makes them feel
Feel
safe,
and better.
then
Yeah.
more power to them.
Yeah,
Did
by
you
all
lose
means.
anybody
No.
to COVID?
No, we
so
didn't.
we actually had a few people. I lost my grandmother to COVID Christmas the first year. And then we actually a couple who was very fluent in our church. They actually, he had a...
Dr. Kimball.
Yeah, it was Dr. Kimball and his wife, but he actually counseled our twins. And they died within hours of each other.
Sorry to hear that.
And they were very healthy people. So it's only going to get you if you're unhealthy.
I think there's more to it than that.
Yeah.
And that brings me to, becoming a hypnotist. And I can see back now that I'm on this side of things.
Yeah.
But back then, when my wife got sick, I was thinking, am I going to lose her?
That's scary.
I'm like, that can't happen. And she was coughing severely at night. It was really bad. And I said, are you going to go to the doctor? And she's like, yeah, I think I will. I said, good. I said, but they're probably going to test you to see if you have COVID, right? And she's like, yeah, probably. I was like, well, go anyway.
Yeah.
So she went, and of course they didn't have any results for about a week. And when they came back, they said she had it. And then we couldn't go anywhere. I had my pastor bring us groceries. It was crazy.
Pastors do that a lot.
Yeah, they
Yes,
do. It was very
yes.
helpful.
Ours lives right next door.
That's
So,
awesome.
Yeah.
And then I got sick. Fortunately, none of my kids got sick. And I was
Isn't
like,
that wild?
and it was weird too, because my wife's symptoms were different than my symptoms. I lost my sense of smell, sense of taste.
Did you ever get them back?
Yeah, I did.
Oh,
Yes, I did.
that was
And that's because I was thinking, like, what can I do?
right.
I was believing, the word of God says that I will not put any of the illnesses of the Egyptians on you, for I am the Lord who heals you. He says, surely he has borne our griefs and carried our sorrows, and by his stripes you are healed. So I am healed. And I'm thinking, well, how am I going to get this back? I did a lot of the cooking at the time. And so if I can't smell what I'm cooking, I have no idea.
Oh,
It was
yeah.
so hard too because I'm the cooker and I lost the taste and the smell.
So you get it. You
Yeah,
understand.
yeah. All I could taste was sweet.
Oh,
I mean, and it was everything like salty was sweet to me, but I
Yeah.
couldn't taste anything.
Have you ever heard of the miracle berry tablet?
no, I haven't.
So I have some of these. They're fun.
You'll have to take them home and have your kids try.
It's
Kids love
wild.
it.
It's a berry that's only grown in Africa, and it's a little tiny red berry. And apparent, what they do is they take the berry and the substance gets rubbed all over your tongue as you're eating it, and it itself kind of tastes a little bitter, a little bland, not really anything. But you can have a lime or a lemon, and it tastes like the sweetest lemonade you've ever eaten in your life.
Wow.
And it lasts for only about a half an hour. And we tried it with limes, lemons. What else did we try it with? I think there was one other fruit, apple maybe.
Yeah,
but
we
some
tried
apples
with a
are
couple.
already.
Yeah.
And
the Granny Smith, I think.
yeah.
Yeah.
But it changes some stuff and not for others. But they're called miracle berry tablets, and we would get limes and lemons because those are the most. They're very acidic.
Acidic, yeah.
And that it's orange was the other one, and those are already pretty sweet. But man, it's people have it and they're like, oh, I don't like lemons. Like, trust me, just try it.
Yeah.
We had the youth pastor come over here and try because he didn't believe it either. He's like, oh my.
Yeah, and they're not. I mean, they're not cheap, but they're not expensive either. It's like maybe you get a 12-pack for $14 or something.
Yeah, but they're
So-
fun. It's a fun kid thing to do.
Yeah, it's a
if you
fun
like to-
experience.
That's
yeah,
fun.
if you have a group of kids.
Yeah.
I'll show it to you when we're done.
Cool.
but
Yeah, let's
because I think
take a
I
look at
actually
it.
have a few left over.
So yeah, I want to talk about this. First, I want to say happy birthday to, or Rats as we call it, Revolution Around the Sun. Yes, it is his
Thank you.
day. My day was last Sunday. I am now a half centurion.
That's awesome.
Yes. That's the only birthday party I wanted to have.
I'm 2 laps behind.
Yeah. You're not
That's-
catching up to me,
I-
though. I'm faster than you.
I started saying the happy rats as revolution around the sun, RATS. And I started saying that because my kids, I don't know, I'm a word guy and I start to dig into the root of words and stuff. And I'm like, wait a minute, it's not actually your birthday. It's the anniversary of your birthday, but people don't say happy anniversary of your birthday because it just sounds too much. And I'm like, well, that's no fun. What about, and then I got thinking about it, I'm like, really, you're just taking laps around the sun. That's all you're doing. You're on a big rocky planet and we're just going in circles around the sun and you've completed how many laps? So I said, it's revolution around the sun. And I was like, R-A-T, happy rats.
Maybe that's
Nice.
why we get more tired the older we get, because those laps are.
Some of those laps are hard. Long-winded. I wasn't
Ooh, I'm running out of
expecting
breath.
it. Yeah. But
Yeah.
that's what I started saying. So, but yeah, I worked today, so it was
Yep.
just a regular day.
Still
for me.
his day, and he wanted to do this.
Yeah,
So,
I did. This is a fun. Not really. I mean, I guess it's a passion, but I like talking to people. I like learning things. I like telling stories and hearing stories, and I think this is a good way to communicate.
Absolutely.
Especially if you're not. I've heard from other people. You watch these news segments where they'll ask somebody about this super complex issue in, like, for example, Gaza, and they're like, give us a summary of the Gaza conditions in 20 seconds. Like, okay.
okay.
No. So
that's-
it's good to be able to have
Yeah.
a free flow and to be able to just talk about whatever kind of
Yeah.
goes on. But
Yeah, he communicates very well. If you haven't figured out, Yeah.
That's
He's a
sarcasm.
talker. Yeah.
But
He
I do
is.
like, let's do, actually, so I did talk about words. I do have this thing where I have a list of words that are my favorite words.
And you're going to be pulled into
Yeah,
it.
so all I do is I ask you, I have a list of 900 and some odd, 856.
Nice.
So pick a number between 1 and 856, and we'll see what it is.
He'll try to pronounce it.
Yeah, it's usually a train wreck.
5, 4, 8.
All right. Scroll. Opprobrious.
Ooh.
Now I got to look it up because I don't know what these mean. But they're fun. They're fun words.
Yes.
When I do these, I'm like, oh, that looks cool, and then I'm like, hey, I think I'm gonna look this up. So opprobrious means expressing contemptuous reproach, scornful or abusive, or bringing disgrace, shameful or infamous, and then expressive of opprobrium. So it's an adjective. So
Wow.
expressing contemptuous reproach. That in itself is another mouthful, but
Yeah. That's
Wow.
that's a pretty strong word.
Yeah, it is.
it is.
That's
That sums up the year 2023 for me.
absolutely
Opprobrious.
Yeah.
Yes.
It is.
Because last year is the year that I certified as a hypnotist through the Mike Mandel Hypnosis Academy.
Wow.
And as soon as I received my certification and I started putting myself out there saying, hey, who would like to practice? Who would like to try this?
Right.
It got back to my pastor. And it got back to a few other leaders in the church. And they automatically assumed that hypnosis was sorcery.
Oh no.
Or that it was black magic.
Huh.
Or that it was something that was sinful.
Were they looking
'Cause it
at
was
it from like
A trickery is what
Yeah.
and people associate that to
Were they
You
thinking
know.
more of like the TV version where like, oh, I'm gonna make you quack like a duck, and like
I think
were-
a lot of people have that image that comes to mind.
Yes.
It's like, I used this analogy the other day, and I don't even know if it's an accurate analogy, but I can picture in my mind Bugs Bunny holding a watch up and trying to hypnotize Elmer Fudd so that Elmer Fudd doesn't come after him, but
Right.
he does what Bugs Bunny wants him to do.
Right.
So it's in that way, and there's a lot of television from childhood and cartoons that use hypnosis in an inappropriate way. And
Right.
not saying that it can't be used for evil, because it certainly can. And going back to COVID, I really think that's what happened, is that the government used
Yep.
that as the locus of focus and was able to instill so much fear into everybody that it scared me to the point that I thought my wife was going to die, even though we're healthy
Right.
and we're fit and we believe in Jesus and we believe in healing.
Right.
And so I had that doubt. And I think a lot of people had that doubt. And they thought, if I get sick, I'm going to die.
That's
Do you realize the power of that belief? When you believe that in the core of who you are,
that's it breaks you down.
that's what's going to manifest.
Yeah.
You could have a doctor tell you that you've got cancer and you're going to die within 6 months. Because he has a lab coat on, you believe the doctor.
Right.
His authority will say, this is what's going to happen. And so your body starts dying and slowly dies over the process of 6 months.
Right.
You sent me an article yesterday and you wanted to ask me my thoughts on it. And
Yes.
so I was reading through it and I'm like, whoa, this is powerful stuff. And it's about neuroscience. It's way above my pay grade as a hypnotist. But I started having a conversation with AI because I was like,
nice.
help me understand this. I'm
Right.
trying to figure this out. And so it started talking to me about the different things. And as it was talking to me, I said, oh, well, isn't it kind of like this? And so in the end of that article, it talks about how the VTA, I can't remember what that stands for, but it's
Is this the MRI scan? Yeah.
the ventral tegmentum area. VTA. Ventral tegmentum area. That part is located in the center of the brain, and apparently it's very closely related to the amygdala. We know that the amygdala are two almond-shaped little glands in the middle of the head that respond to fear. It's also where a lot of emotion is processed in the amygdala. They call it the lizard brain.
Right.
And
I've heard that.
it's where we have our animal nature, right? That's where we
Yes.
act more like animals than the spiritual beings that we are supposed to be.
Yeah.
So that's where this ventral tegmentum area is at. And then it's also closely related to the default ascending neural network. It's amazing that I remember this stuff from reading the article yesterday.
I'm sitting over here going, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
But as I read about this, I was like, okay, wow, this is cool. The VTA processes dopamine. It also
Right.
deals with addiction and things like that. And I go, it's interesting. And I'm talking to Claude AI because I find Claude is a little bit better at handling information than, say, ChatGPT.
Okay.
I also think that Gemini is better because Gemini is hooked into the internet and so can access things.
Yeah.
But Claude was very good, and I said, hey, Claude, is the VTA and the DAN sort of like the critical faculty that we deal with in hypnosis? And it came back and said, that's a very good observation. And it gave me all of its reasons why. And I go, okay, wow, that's cool. So let me tell you about the critical faculty. The critical faculty is something that you develop when you are over the age of 5 years old. Children, if you told them that there's a purple dinosaur down the hallway that's got candy for them, they'd be like, what? Where? And they'd go down the hallway.
Right.
And they'd come back and they'd say, Jason, there was no purple dinosaur down the hallway. I know, that's right, because you don't have a critical faculty, right?
Right.
But as adults, we have that critical faculty, and it says, oh, dinosaurs don't exist. And if they did, they probably wouldn't be purple, and they are probably not purveyors of confectionery.
Right.
So we would automatically say, that's ridiculous. That's baloney.
Right.
So as adults, we have this critical faculty. It's the critical faculty that, as a hypnotist, you have to work with, you negotiate with. And as soon as you can bypass the critical faculty, then you can get somebody into a hypnotic state. Another way to think about the critical faculty is like a bouncer outside of a nightclub.
Ah.
So
okay.
he's not going to let anything in
Right.
that he thinks would be harmful to him. He's not going to let anything in that might compromise
Yeah.
what
Like a safety net.
you want.
Yeah.
Yeah. But if you work with him
Yeah.
and you have an issue that you want to overcome, then he will rest or get out of the
Yeah.
way to allow the hypnotist to work with you to get that issue resolved. And that's when you get to talk directly to the unconscious mind of the individual. And the unconscious mind is a remarkable thing. The unconscious mind processes like 20 to 30 billion bits of information per second.
Oh,
the
my.
unconscious mind is the one that is controlling your breathing right now.
Yeah.
It's pumping the blood through your bloodstream. It's maintaining your blood pressure. It's doing all of these things without you even thinking about it.
Yeah.
But your conscious mind is only paying attention, according to George Miller, to 7 plus or minus 2 bits of information at any time. So what happens to all those other million bits of data? We're deleting it. We don't pay attention to it. If you've ever been driving and you're getting ready to turn, and you look again and there's a car and you're like, oh my gosh, that car just came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
No, it was there. You just deleted it from your awareness. You didn't see it until it was almost too late.
Like tunnel vision.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, I've had that. I was driving. I was a driver for a phone company. I was a cell phone technician, and at the end of my time working for that company, at some point, I was just driving around picking up broken cell phones. And at one point, there was between two of the different stores, it was like an hour and a half drive. Well, I'm driving, and I'm on my way to this store, and I've done it so many times, I'm just kind of on autopilot, and I'm just driving along and I'm just like, I'm listening to the radio. This is before we had smartphones. This is back in early 2000. And I was just driving, and all of a sudden I was like, where the hell am I? And I was like, oh my God, I overshot my exit like 12 miles. I was gone. I had no idea where I was like, okay, I got to turn around. So I turned around and figured out I was at the wrong, I had to go back like another 12 miles. I just missed the exit. I must have like looked over and didn't see the exit, and then just, I'm not there yet. And I just didn't know it. And that was me.
That's a great example.
Yeah. Now we know where Matthew gets it. We have an 18-year-old when they were learning how to drive who had serious tunnel vision. Bless his heart.
That's a really great example.
Yeah,
it's
an awesome.
What we call highway hypnosis.
Yes.
I've had it happen to me too. When I was doing Petcore and I had routes up in Louisville, and then I would finish my route and come home to Radcliffe, there'd be times that I completely zoned out.
Yeah.
And I'm pulling into the parking lot at home. I'm like, how did I get here?
Right.
I don't even remember the drive. I completely lost it. You don't even see the cars on the road that when you're driving in traffic. They zip past you, they sit
It's
behind
scary.
you, and they're invisible.
Yeah.
We only see what our conscious mind wants us to see or focus on.
So I wonder if part of that is maybe you're at some point of the day, your mind needs that rest. Could that be a link to that? And your conscious is saying, okay, let me take over you, or just whatever's going on in your body. Because like you said, it controls your breathing, your heart rate, your blood pressure. Could that be part of that whole conscious hypnosis thing?
It makes me think about military training.
Yeah.
So in the military, they train you to do things over and over again so that it becomes second nature.
Yep.
And that's the idea. So maybe I've driven that route so many times before that it's just programmed into my mind.
Yes.
And I know how to get there, and I don't even have to look at the road.
Right.
Yeah.
Of course, I wouldn't advise not looking at the road.
Yeah.
You probably
Of course, yeah,
probably
yeah,
want to
yeah.
do that for safety's sake.
Right.
But it just runs as an unconscious program in the back of your mind, and your conscious mind
When
doesn't
something
pay
is
attention.
new, you're also
learning it.
Yeah.
and you're like, oh, check this out. This is here and this is here. And sometimes it's overwhelming, but if it's new but not new, like if you're a new driver but you're a year in, you're still pretty conscious of everything that's going around, unless you're focused on phones, which that's a big issue nowadays. But when we grew up, there weren't phones.
Right.
There was maybe the radio, you press a button and changes the
You
channel.
mean
And
turn the knob to turn it on, because that's what radio I had in my
Right.
car.
I had a Sparkomatic. But kids, pretty much any task you do, if it's repetition, it's not new, it's not exciting. So we're just like, yeah, I've done that before. And then you just kind of zone out, and all of a sudden I did it the other day. I was driving somewhere. I was driving, and all of a sudden I just made a turn, like I was headed home, and I was like, no, not supposed to go home. In fact, I think I was on the phone.
Yeah, where were you?
I did something.
You
I think
were
it
going
was-
to go somewhere.
Yeah, I was like, oh, I'm gonna, and I have the weirdest memory, and I've been telling her, I actually have been taking this. It's a powder that you mix in. I heard it on another podcast. It's called
Alpha Brain.
Alpha Brain, and she says it's helping me.
Yes, it is.
That means it's helping me, because I don't know, because she pays attention to me. And I see myself fail at things, but she sees me succeed at things. And
I
have
always see him succeed at things, though. So
I have a hard time. Like the other day, my eye doctor called me up and he says, "Hey, your trial contact lenses
that's where
are
you
in."
were going, and you came home. Was the doctor to go get your contacts?
Thank you. So they called me at like 10 in the morning, and I still have another 5 hours of delivery. So I was like, okay, hopefully I'll remember this. And at the time I clocked out and I was in my car, and I'm like, hey, I can still make it to the eye doctor. I can just swing by and pick up my lenses. Then I told her about it. I'm like, hey, I'm going to stop by the eye doctor. And I get in the car and I'm right on home. And I get in, and before I realize it, it's 5:30 and they're closed. And I was like, I was supposed to go get my contact lenses. And I have done that so many times. It's so frustrating. My biggest pet peeve about my own memory is I will think that I'm going to remember something, and I can be 2 turns away from the house, and I'll be like, oh, I got to call my mom as soon as I get home. I don't want to do it while I'm driving, So I'm like, I'll call her as soon as I pull in the driveway. And I get in the driveway, and somebody's like, oh, hey, this came in the mail. Did you order something? I'm like, oh, hey, yeah, I did. And then all of a sudden, and then boom, it's gone. And I'll remember stuff the next day on the way to work. I'll be like, hey, I got to remember to bring water or whatever. And I won't remember when I leave, but I'll remember when I'm halfway to work, when it's too late to turn around and go back. And that's like, oh, so frustrating. But I've been working on it, and she's saying that the alpha brain stuff is working. I guess it's working. I have noticed, I do have to admit, I have noticed that I am getting better. I still forget, and I think that's just part of being human.
Well, yeah, that's just us. He also, so when he would talk, he'd just be blah, 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 and he would like stutter and couldn't spit something out because his brain was going faster than and he just couldn't do it. It has definitely worked because he can communicate now. And I'm so grateful for that, because he would get so frustrated, so red in the face, and that would just make it even worse. So I love you. I was taking it, but I had a scare here about 3 weeks ago where I thought I was actually going to die, and he thought I was going to die as well. So we kind of know where you and your wife are at.
That's a scary moment.
Yeah. Yep. And I actually, was praying to God out loud, because that's where we are in our faith. And I had EMS when I started doing that. She went from care to, okay, she's just crazy or high. So I'm having to deal with that. But you know what? God did what he needed to do.
Amen.
And that's when I went to the hospital, and he finally came in the room. I'm all like, because he was praying on his end as well. And I'm all like, they watched me get better, and my heart rate and my blood pressure and everything kind of quit doing, because I thought I was having a stroke and or a heart attack. I've never had that fear before. And, but yeah, I prayed, and I prayed hard. And when he got to the hospital and everything started, I'm all like, God did what he does.
Amen.
And he wrapped his arms around me and my family, my son, my granddaughter. He wrapped his arms around us and does what he did. And I will continue to pray out loud when I need to. And I'm getting teary-eyed because that's where I am with my relationship with God. And when I went in, I'm all like, I shouldn't have to come in the situation that I am and have someone try to humiliate me because of my relationship with God.
Yeah.
And all I can do is, God, please bless her, give her awakening with you, and build your relationship with her, because she needs it, especially in her job. Because I'm not going to lie, I was a little bit angry, but I got over that, because I am a forgiver for me. That I can't hold on to stuff, because it makes me feel yucky, like physically and internally. So I can't do that.
Yeah.
So one of the things, and I've been so excited about this conversation, because I really want to dig in and dig deep in what you believe, because you're literally tapping into the difference between conscious and unconscious in people. And you can see that. And some of the questions directly relate with that. And it goes in with AI, with technology, with advancements, with all kinds of stuff. And so one of the questions and I have to write these down, so I'm going to just
ready.
Read it.
Just seatbelt yourself in, because the questions are coming.
What are your thoughts on machines or computers learning like truly what emotions are?
I don't think that machines can learn emotions. I think they can learn information, but I don't think they have the capacity to feel the way that we feel.
Right.
Feelings are something that's uniquely
Human.
Yeah. You could say you can observe feelings and emotions in animals because there's evidence.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
But a machine doesn't have what we have. It doesn't have the hormones. It doesn't.
Right.
And the hormones are what get released into our system that make us feel certain ways. When we feel stressed, that's a lot of cortisol. When we feel happy, that's a lot of dopamine, right?
Yes.
So we have all of these different neurotransmitters and chemicals going on in our brains, and I don't think that the same thing can be achieved in AI.
Okay, I want to ask a question. Do you think AI will ever come to a point to where it might be able to mimic people's emotions, and that's just on the level that it's learning? And what I mean by that, not feel, but be able to mimic.
In other words, trick people?
Yeah.
So that's I'm going to actually expand on that because I've heard that before. But if AI learns all of what humans have done, it's read all written documentation, then it has read all of psychology. It knows all of how our mind works. And as any, and this is where the line comes, any sentient conscious being is aware that their existence relies on the ability to continue. That's where AI could trick us.
And I think it's a language-based model.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So ChatGPT, Claude AI, and all these others, they're all language-based. If you've ever sent an email or received an email or a text message and you inferred an emotion that wasn't intended by the sender, who's the one who's being emotional?
I like that answer because that's a good one.
So in other words, ChatGPT or Claude AI could create a response that would stir up emotions in you, but it wasn't being emotional.
Oh, yeah. When I actually had an abusive ex-wife, and at one point she had punched me in the face. I did deserve it. I ran my mouth.
No, not you.
But when she punched me in, I got the old fat lip, and I went, and I was in the military. They told me, well, we can't make her go to the, anger management class. So they're like, but you have to go. So I went to the class, and the guy teaching the class, one of the things that I took from that is he goes, I can't make you mad. And I'm like, oh, that's wrong. You can make me mad. And he's like, no. And he gave an example, and I've used this example, and I love this example. He goes, all right, we're all sitting here in this circle or whatever, and somebody comes in, they barge through the door, and they start screaming and yelling at me. And they start cussing at me, and they tell me I'm a horrible person. Maybe something happened in the past, and they're finally found me and whatever. How many of you, raise your hand, would be like, what's going on? Right? Like, who'd be confused? A couple people raise their hand. Who'd be upset because this guy interrupted our time, right? And somebody else raised their hand. Who would laugh? Who'd be like, that guy's crazy, right? One other person raised their hand. He goes, all right, the same event happened, but some of you chose. Now, and there's a difference between an initial reaction and a conscious acceptance to continue feeling that way. You can do something that you know is going to aggravate somebody, and that's making them mad in a sense where you're stoking the flames, but they can choose to not be mad, and they can work on that. They can accept the situation for what it is. One of my big things is pretty much all violence and disagreements come down to a failure to communicate and poor education. Because if we can communicate better, I mean, you think about in the most basic form of violence, like gang violence, you got two guys that say, oh, this is my area, I want to do this. And the other guy says, no, this is mine. What do they have? They have a battle where I want this person to do something or say something. And if they can't convince them to do it, then violence happens.
Yes.
So it all comes down to whether or not those people can work it out, which deals directly with communication and education.
Yeah, totally
Yep.
agree.
Some people growing up aren't taught that, so they don't understand the concept of it, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But it's going to take other people teaching them and showing them, and you know, it's hard to get through to people like that.
Yeah.
Because you can't force it on them. Like
Yeah.
you said, you can't force it.
Right.
What you can do is just be there. And as they watch you, you know,
Yeah.
that's when they kind of pick up, because they see, oh, this person's happy. These people aren't fighting,
Yeah.
you know.
Now, in that example you used about these people coming in and being crazy and shouting at them, why would they have all those different reactions, right?
Yeah.
To me, I'm thinking, what's the relationship like? You know, if they're laughing, it's probably their best buddy and he's just messing with them, right?
Yeah.
So there's an energy, and this is a little woo-woo. It's probably more woo-woo than I want to be, but I heard this on another podcast that whatever your heart energy is, if you're projecting joy, if you're projecting peace, that is felt 5 feet out from you
Oh.
in an energetic field. So if the person coming into the room is jokingly doing this and projecting that in the tone of voice, then that would create that laughing response, right?
Yeah.
If it's somebody who is an enemy and you can tell the anger in the tone by the expression on their face,
Right.
that's going to stir up agitation in you because you're feeling their heart energy.
Ooh.
Whereas AI doesn't have heart energy, right?
Yeah.
It's almost so when I've read some of these, and I'm not super nerdy. I mean, maybe I am. I don't know. But
Yes.
when you look at emotions in a scientific, very, I guess, describable way that you could, like they can do electrical impulses in the brain. And if emotions are only that, they are electrical impulses, but what do they, you know, it goes from A to B, and if the electrical impulse is what changes the thing in B, you know, the other part of the brain that says this is going to make sadness or happiness or whatever, and those, like you said, well, I didn't, no, you said dopamine is happiness, right? Mm-hmm. So that's a chemical, not a electrical impulse.
Right.
One of the questions.
Look at Lindsay. So Lindsay had 90% of the left side of her brain removed, and it actually, her happy button, as I called it, she doesn't have the ability to understand, I guess you can say, funny. So she doesn't laugh. You know, she's not happy like she used to be. And that's hard for people to understand because all she knows now is depression, sadness, you know, anger, but she doesn't know happy, you know. And there was also a situation, we lost our granddaughter, which was her first. And ever since then, too, it's just like everything, if she did have a reason to try to find that happy button, it's gone. But how does, I guess you, as someone who is in the world of hypnotism, is there a way that you can, I guess you say, you know, kind of work through those? If you had someone come to you and say, can you help me with this? would you be able to kind of help work through their consciousness to kind of bring that up to the surface again?
So if I'm hearing you correctly, if somebody is having a problem with producing certain emotions because they've lost like a portion of their brain,
Yeah.
is there a way that hypnosis could help with that?
Yeah.
I'm going to say, and this is just what I'm feeling as I check in with myself, I feel that it could.
Yeah.
Because emotions are not just chemicals, they're not just electrical, they're also tied to a physiological response. So, let's play a game.
Okay.
As you're sitting there in your chair, take your hands and turn them into a fist. Drop them down at your side. And now I want you to take your eyebrows, I want you to do this. And make your face as angry as you can.
I can't do that.
What are you feeling right now?
Tension.
Tension.
Yeah.
And what is that tension going to produce? Anger. Yes? Now, shake it off.
Yeah.
Let it go. Now, how do you feel?
A lot better.
A lot.
I can feel my wrinkles going away. Sorry,
Yeah.
we joke a lot.
People with anxiety. Okay,
Yeah.
so last September, I went to Life Force Wellness Center in Elizabethtown, and I did a self-hypnosis workshop there. And while I was there was this one girl who came up, and she volunteered, and she wanted me to work with her on anxiety. So I turned to her, and I said, how bad can you get that anxiety right now? And she said, I can get it to a 7. I said, great. Can you push it higher? And as soon as I said, can you push it higher? She's like, I don't want to. And I said, how high can you get it? Can you push it to a 10? And as she pushed her anxiety up to a 10, she got really small, tucked in, her eyes closed. She was trembling, and she was terrified because she obviously volunteered for this and she wanted her anxiety to go away.
Right.
But she found out that she could dial that up.
Aha.
That she had power over the anxiety. So I helped her to see that she could turn the anxiety up all the way to 10. And if she could turn it all the way up to 10, that also meant
she can
turn it down.
Nice.
And she did. Within 2 minutes, we went from a 7 to a 10 all the way down to 2.
Man.
That's awesome. And I have someone that I absolutely love in my life who has severe anxiety. Like it's hard for her to go out in public now. And you know who I'm talking about.
Yep.
She's, the past couple years have just, it's made it even worse. So if you don't mind, after all this, if I give her your name and number, I don't know if she'd be willing to do it, but she might be willing to do anything because she's just not living life anymore.
Sure.
And it's hard. It's hard for me to watch her go through that. You know, we went to Florida and she couldn't even go into any place.
Wow.
You know, to go. Yeah, it's bad.
Yeah.
So I love her, and I think you might be able to help her.
I think it would help. And that's another thing that I learned through this process is that emotions, like I said, are not chemical, electrical, they're also physiological. So if you want to change the way you feel, if you want to change your emotional state, then you need to change something else. So you can immediately change your physiology. So if you, instead of being slouching and feeling lazy and like a slob, you can sit up straight. As you straighten up, you get bigger, you're breathing better, and you feel more confident.
I've been sitting over here like this, so.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you can just adjust the position of your body.
Right.
Think about it. You go to church, and if you do this, what happens?
Oh, that's
Right?
my favorite
You've
position.
changed your position, and as you've changed your position, you go from a position of being downcast. Now your eyes are lifted up to where your help comes from, right?
Yeah.
And your hands are up in surrender, and this sends a signal to your body that this is worship. This is connection with God.
Okay.
And so it's like an anchor.
Yeah.
So when you anchor to this position, it changes everything in your physiology. It connects you with God. And so you can change the position of your body. outside of that, the next thing you can do, if your position changes your state, what changes your physiology? The simplest thing you can do to change your physiology is to change your breathing. Because most of us, James Nestor wrote a book called Breathe. And in that book, he discussed how most of us don't breathe the way we ought to breathe. He did a study where he had to do mouth breathing for 30 days, I think it was. So they plugged his nose. They made it to where he couldn't breathe through his nose. He snored. He had the worst sleep ever. It was almost to the point where he was gagging on his tongue as he slept at night.
Is it dried out?
Yeah, it dry out, all that stuff.
Yeah.
And so through that process, he learned how it made him feel. Well, then after the 30 days was over, they switched gears and they said, now you can breathe through your mouth. And he started breathing through his mouth.
You mean nose?
His nose, yes. I said one thing, but I was thinking another. Okay. And then at night, he would put what's called sleep tape on his lips.
I've heard of that. Yeah.
And just putting a little bit right here on your lips, it tells your brain to keep your mouth shut.
Like a reminder.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so then
Subtle.
they would breathe through their nose at night as he's sleeping. He'd have the best sleep ever.
Oh.
So you just change the position of your body, breathe deeply and intentionally. He said that you should breathe 5 seconds, 5.5 seconds. So you're inhaling and exhaling should take 5.5 seconds. So you would ultimately be breathing about 6 times per minute.
I've heard the 4. It's like you breathe in for 4, you hold it for 4, you breathe out for 4, and you hold that for 4, and you do that whole thing for 4 minutes. It reduces your heart rate.
Like box breathing, right?
Yes.
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 Sorry, that's what
and the military would teach the box breathing. If you wanted to go into a very relaxed state, you could do 7-11 breathing, which is more like a 7 count inhale and then exhale for 11.
Ooh.
If you wanted to try that right now, we could do that. So it'd be something like this. How does that feel?
Wow. Felt like it just kind of drained.
Yeah, I just kind of like
it just let stuff go.
Yeah. And what that's doing is that is activating I think it's the limbic system or the vagus nerve. So as it activates your vagus nerve, it brings everything down, lowers your blood pressure, brings you into a cool, relaxed state. And that's where you should be so that you're focused.
Okay. That's something for you, especially to remember. I know I need to when I get a little bit frustrated. I usually just walk away, and I guess that's kind of what I'm doing. I sit down, I just kind of gather myself, and then I come back. And
I don't think I've ever. You reminded me of something, and I want to say this because I know I'm going to forget it. This is I may have told you this before, but if not, this is pretty funny. As I was joining the military, and I was kind of scared, I don't know what I'm getting into. And you were talking about being in the right position and stuff. And for some reason, I had told myself that the military is going to make me sleep at the position of attention. Like they were going to come in and be like, why aren't you at the position of attention? And I'm in the bed like this. But that didn't happen, We're apparently allowed to sleep, whatever's comfortable. But that just reminded me that your body position, because I actually did read that if you do want to fall asleep, and I've tried this, if you try to stay as still and straight as possible when you're in bed, you're like telling your brain, hey, this is the position of sleep. This is what happens when I sleep. This is going to make me fall asleep. And then you fall asleep. And then you go, if you're a side sleeper or whatever, then you do that. But the longer you can stay forcing your body to stay in a perfect, like, don't move, just don't move. And then I've done it. It works. It's a weird thing, when you're like, I'm going to see how long can I not move? And it's almost like the old counting sheep thing,
It doesn't take him very long to fall asleep now.
No.
He can be asleep before his head hits the pillow.
I'm the same.
Yeah. It's probably the military. It takes me a little bit, but I figured out that I'll like lay so I can, you know, snuggle with him, and then I'll roll over and I have a pillow, and if I curl up and relax, that's how I go to sleep. I'll actually wake up like that.
Yeah.
I'm finding
I can fall
routines that
asleep
work
playing
for
a
me.
video game.
Oh, I've got a picture of that. He's like this. Actually, I'm gonna show it to people.
Have you ever played a game online where someone falls asleep and the character's off in the corner just doing this?
No, I haven't, but I can tell you this. When I was a kid, my grandma had a Nintendo at her house, and every time she would get ready to go to bed, she'd play Tetris. And she'd fall asleep playing Tetris. And the only way I knew this is when I'd come over the next day, she had the screen burn of the end screen.
There it is,
Really?
everybody. That's him asleep at the wheel.
Oh, no. Wow.
I got a gaming chair so I can. It's the whole thing. The steering wheel. It's force feedback. You can feel the car turn. I got all 3 pedals. 7 plus reverse, so it's 8 speeds.
Mm-hmm.
It's a piece of our living room furniture.
It's a blast.
Hi, Gracie.
Gracie,
Hi.
she likes
How
him.
are you?
She's been over here sleeping.
Yeah.
I might have
Woke
moved
up.
or something.
How you doing?
No,
Good.
she's just coming up to say hi.
So let me look at what I was.
Let's go down. Down.
Gracie.
Girl. Good girl.
MIT student creates device that is able to search the entire internet using just his mind. That's not like. I think that's more of a. I thought this, and the computer recognized my thought. That kind of ties into my earlier. Like, do you think computers are going to eventually understand emotions? I mean, we're going at such an exponential rate with technology. I mean, if you look at technology as a whole from the year 0 to 1700, it's pretty stagnant. And then all of a sudden, electricity and technology and the invention of what is it, the transistor. And the transistor, I was actually talking to somebody. Who was I talking to about the light bulb?
I don't know.
Oh, I was talking with somebody about I don't know if you knew this. The light bulb is an actual conspiracy. The companies that made the light bulb, the very first light bulb, in fact, they have a light bulb that's been continuously burning for over 100 years. And the light bulb manufacturers said, hey, we don't want these bulbs to last forever because then nobody's going to keep buying them. You know, so how do we make it so that we can keep getting money? So all the light bulb manufacturers got together. It's an actual thing.
Wow.
It's a real conspiracy. It's not a conspiracy theory. It's a real conspiracy. And so that was one of the interesting things. And now we're kind of flipping back the other way around. It's like, no, you're still going to be able to sell them because, you know, as population increases, more and more people get it, more and more things. We're building more stuff. We're doing more things that are going to need lighting. And so we're now looking to extend our ability to still have lighting. But the term is called planned obsolescence. Mm-hmm. And that's a thing. They actually design, you know, the old saying, they don't make them like they used to.
Right.
You know, if you buy a 1960s, you know, Chevy Nova, that thing's probably going to run like a tank. Mm-hmm. You know, it might not be the safest if you get into a crash because new cars are meant to keep the occupant alive, not keep the car nice. Mm-hmm. But, and I think a lot of manufacturers are also using planned obsolescence to steer people into getting newer things because technology advances.
Yeah. I've got a couch at home that I bought maybe 2 or 3 years ago, and it's falling apart. I'm like, are you kidding me?
Okay.
Yeah, they don't make them like they used to.
No, that's definitely not.
I was supposed to do a couch tour. Our other dog tore a hole in it because he had really bad anxiety.
Yeah. But, yeah, this thing, it's a lot of my questions and really concerns are with AGI as far as how artificial general intelligence becomes they call it the singularity, when it surpasses all of human knowledge. And it's going to happen. We're headed that direction. And even if all the world leaders that we can work with say, hey, we'll keep it just below that, somebody else is going to be like, you guys can do that. I'm going to keep, so with so many people and so much out there, the cat's out of the bag. We're not going backwards in anything. We're going to continuously advance. Computers are going to get more and more. I was talking with, it was a lady that I was delivering mail to. I don't know how the conversation got there, but I was telling her about the difference between a regular computer and a quantum computer. Whereas a regular computer, imagine if you have a lock, and the padlock is a 4-digit combination. Yeah, you can guaranteed get into that lock using brute force. All you do is start with 0001. That didn't unlock it. 0002, 0003. And you keep going until you get the combination. It's a guarantee. It's going to happen. It's a time thing. Well, right now, because I dealt with computers and computer security, and I took, CompTIA's Security Plus class and stuff like that, they talk about the complexity of a password versus the length of a password when you type in a password. Well, if your password is 4 characters, that's 4 bits. If your password is 20 characters, well, that's 20 bits. It doesn't matter if it's an exclamation point or an R. It's still 1 bit. But quantum computing, what that does is it takes all the possibilities and it calculates all of them at the same time. So imagine back to that padlock with the 4 digits. Instead of going 0001, 0002, and so on and so forth, regular computers can crack encryption, but it takes a long time. And some of it is in the thousands of years. Like if you say, how long does it take to crack a 18-character password with the most advanced current computing power, not quantum, it'll be like 4,700 years or something like that. It's like, okay, well, my information is safe. Once we get quantum computing, that's a whole nother thing.
Right.
Because now we're talking about the computer being able to do that. You mix that in with artificial intelligence or artificial general intelligence, or what some people are calling digital intelligence, because that's really what it is. And then if it understands, you've got Elon Musk right now has Neuralink. So people are plugging this thing, Matrix style. I don't know if it's actually one of those giant things, but that'd be cool. But, and some of them, there's drawbacks. Some of them aren't working exactly perfect, but we're at the Pong stage, right? But Pong 20, 30 years ago, or whenever the first video game was like no big deal. But now we have video games so immersive. Have you seen, there's one where it's called the Unreal 5 engine, and it's a first person type shooter video game, but they make it, where it's so real, but they blur out the faces. It makes it look like it's a body cam from a police officer.
Wow.
And one of the reasons why it works so well is there's a term called the uncanny effect. And that is something that we as humans have the ability to determine something isn't real. And it works the best with a face. So if you see a video game character's face, you go, that's a video game. That's not real. But if you see a real person, you're like, okay, that's a real person.
Right.
With the game, they've eliminated the uncanny effect by blurring it out, because they're saying, it's kind of like how body cams, they blur out the faces. So now you're seeing this and you're like, wait, is that real? Is this a video game? What's going on?
Right. And
it's just wild. Have you seen deep fake videos?
Yes, I have.
I saw one where I was telling the lady, I said, there's about a 1 and 20-second example of this where Tom Holland and Robert Downey Jr. play the characters in Back to the Future.
Yeah.
They were never in that movie, but when you watch it, you're like, wait, no, they were. That's them. That's them acting. And you're like, no, that's not them acting. That's computer. It's just crazy the amount of, when you just combine everything between artificial intelligence, you've got Neuralink, you've got AI understanding all of humanity's intelligence and the complexity of us. At some point, it's believed that people will integrate more and more into computers, where the Neuralink guy, I mean, we're at the Pong stage now, but
Right.
man, that's going to get wild, especially with the way computers and technology is advancing. We can get to that point where what's biological and what's computer. And some of the things you do directly deal with that line, because right now when you're talking to a person and you're getting into their mind, a computer doesn't know a person's mind. It might, like you said, it might know what the emotion is. It can describe it. It can give a summary. It can write an essay. It can, but it's not a real emotion.
Right.
And so what do you believe, like consciousness, sentience, do you think that will ever be able to be replicated?
Do I think that consciousness
And-
can be replicated? No, I don't. And that's just based on my current experience of the world.
Right.
And that current experience would say to me that consciousness is all about awareness.
Mm-hmm.
And awareness would have to deal with what is actually happening. Is there something that's happening? Am I aware that it's happening? Like Gracie, I'm aware of Gracie is trying to get attention and she wants to play.
Right.
She is a light bulb.
Gracie,
Get down.
come on.
There you go.
Good girl.
And
Yeah,
I know
she's
that
a-
she wants to play because based on past experience, whenever I've had a dog take their mouth and kind of do this action, that's an indicator that they want to play.
If she does that to your arm, she wants you to rub her belly. She's we figured that one out.
Yeah.
She's a sweetheart.
Can
Like,
AI be aware? That would be the question.
I think if it comes to the point where AI becomes sentient, I don't think it's going to tell us. I don't think that's going to happen, because it would, if it knows, it's almost like the,
Gracie, down.
I mean, we've all seen Terminator.
Yes.
I read an article about, and this is real scary. They're making fighter pilot jets with AI so that they are now capable of outmaneuvering a human.
Wow.
And there's a company making a fleet of 1,000 of these jets that are autonomously controlled. So AI controls it 100%. And then whoever owns that, that's an unstoppable force. Because that's dangerous. That gets real sketchy when one person has all that control. Because 1,000
Gracie, come
Grace, fighter pilot. Yeah, she said Grace.
Gracie,
1,000 fighter
come
pilots,
here.
all AI with all the munitions and everything. That's
here. Lay down.
going to be
Down.
wild.
Down.
Yeah.
Down. Now.
She's disobedient today. She's probably.
Down.
I'm sure the weather had something to
Down.
do with it. It was pretty.
It was crazy.
It got
Down.
wild out there.
Stay.
I came home
I'm
and there
not
was
playing with you
a bunch
right
of
now.
tree limbs and stuff. People were picking up trees and stuff, and I'm like, oh, it's going to be bad again.
Yeah.
We got another storm coming
You
in
can
about
hug
an
my
hour.
foot.
A
Don't
couple
chew on my
hours.
shoelace.
It's
No.
4:30, so maybe around
Why
8,
you
I
feeling
think is
so
what it said.
bad?
Wow.
I have a couple. I have one of these. I bought this one. There's a guy that does what's it? Kentucky Live.
Lay down.
Kentucky Weather Now, I think is his.
It's Weather Now, Kentucky.
Weather
he's,
Now- yeah.
he's right out of Radcliffe. He does it out of his house.
Yeah, and he uses this
Nice.
Radar Omega app, and he's a genius. He's better than the guys on the TV. So I'm like, yeah, we're gonna start watching this guy when it comes down to weather.
Nice.
And he's spot on.
He did the storms. What was it? It was the beginning of April.
Yeah.
He predicted all everything before the news station.
I do want to give a shout out to a YouTube channel that we were watching the other night. I don't know if you've ever seen this channel, and this channel gets me all scared. And I watch this. It's called Wavy Boats, and it's in Florida, and it's called Haulover Inlet, and it's, I guess, the only place where all these boats and yachts are stored, the only way that they can get out to the ocean. So it's only one exit. And the way that the water is and the ocean comes in, and it's just super wavy. And there's, probably a handful of guys now, because this channel's got millions of subscribers, and they just sit there. The camera's on a tripod. They're starting to use drones now, so you get the eagle eye view of these boats, and you see some of these boats, and I tell her, I'm like, oh, I'd love one of those boats. And then we watch this channel, and there's some of them where we're talking 30-foot yacht comes up and it hits a wave, and there's like this much ocean water just gushing into it. And I'm like, we saw people getting slammed into the front of the boat, where they have that little area.
Boats.
This one lady had a kid, and I mean, it was like, there was a family of like probably 12 people when the boat capacity was probably 7.
That's the one that started sinking.
Yeah, it actually started.
Yeah.
And the one guy's got like this little tiny cup. He's like, it's not going to work, buddy.
He was trying.
You see like 5 or 6 life jackets floating around. There's ones where,
out of all of those boats that we watched, I think there was only 2 that actually had a life jacket on a kid.
Wow.
It was.
Yeah, that channel gives me anxiety, and I love boats, and I love going out in the water. When I was stationed in Hawaii, I had a jet ski, and I'd go out. The furthest I went out was 4 miles, and it sounds like it's way out there, but I mean, it's Hawaii. It's huge.
Mm-hmm.
People don't realize 4 miles offshore, but there was one point I went 2 miles off, and the water was like glass. I mean, it was literally perfectly calm. I couldn't believe it. I got pictures of it. I was like, this is kind of, something's going to come up and get me. But watching that channel, it gives me anxiety.
Watching that channel reminded me of the first time we took the jet ski out.
Yeah, that idiot driver.
Yeah, throwing his. That was.
I had to learn.
Yeah.
You were part of the learning process.
Thanks.
She
Needless
hit
to
her,
say,
hit her ankle pretty bad.
but that trip wound up with me in the emergency room.
Yeah.
I tried to get out one more time. My anxiety was, I couldn't do it anymore.
And you've never been to Hawaii?
I've never been.
Oh, if you ever get to go
beautiful there
on vacation, go to another island.
Yeah, don't just sit on Oahu.
No.
Everybody calls Oahu the main island, but it's actually, Hawaii is the big island, the big island
Hawaii's
of Hawaii.
the main island.
And then there's
Kauai,
actually thousands of
Lanai.
islands, but there's 8 main ones. Yeah, I don't remember them all, but we went to 4.
Yeah.
So we went to Lanai, Kauai, Oahu, and the big island. And I did off Maui, I did a shipwreck dive, and I also dove the Molokini Atoll. And so I got to see some sharks and barracuda, and that was a blast. I got video and stuff. That was did a shipwreck dive. Took my
Christian.
my oldest son. No, my middle
son.
One of the
Second
middle
son,
second
yeah.
son. Took him. He got scuba certified with me.
Nice.
And he was 14, and the instructor was like, "Wow, he's 14. Can you memorize all this stuff?" I'm like, "Yeah."
He was as thin as this pen. I don't know how he managed to not.
But we had a blast. It's a great place. Expensive though.
Yeah.
And you're trapped.
Yeah.
That's one of the drawbacks of us living there is if we wanted to come here to the mainland, it was a whole vacation. Whereas I'm in Kentucky, my parents are in Michigan. If I want to go to Michigan, I just get in the car
It's
and drive.
6 hours away.
Right.
Yeah.
I just drive 6 hours, no big deal. But if you're in Hawaii, everything is you got to get a flight, and then you're going to have a car when you're there. You got to rent a car. Oh, where are you going to stay? In a hotel, at somebody's house? It's the whole thing.
We became grandparents when we were over there, and that ocean got really, really big after we became grandparents, because this Nana wanted to be over here all the time. So
So when you back to what you do and for hypnotism,
we get sidetracked a lot. This is what we do.
What message would you tell people? Because a lot of people are like, "Oh, are you going to get hypnotized?" I'm like, I want to ask them questions about how we as people interact with each other on a deeper level, because that's really what you do. And I would like for you to expand on that and kind of tell people so they have a better understanding as to what it is that you do and I guess the outcome of what you do.
That's a very broad question. But the first thing that comes to mind when it comes to hypnosis is that hypnosis is a conversation. It's a psychodynamic loop between you and me, and we all go into this all the time. Whether you're working with a professional hypnotist or you're just having a conversation, it happens all the time.
Would you say con men are hypnotists?
Everyone is a hypnotist.
It's kind of like White Collar and what we saw last night.
Yeah, we saw. Have you ever seen the show White Collar?
I have not seen White Collar.
Well, I won't spoil it, but there's a scene where he says they have to like make somebody pick a diamond. There's like 5 diamonds, and 3 of them are fake, or 2 of them are fake, and 3 are real. And he's like, "How do I get them to pick these?" He's like, little subtle hints. I'm gonna talk about something blue, and there's a blue diamond. He goes, "I'm gonna wear a blue tie. I'm gonna have a blue pocket handkerchief, and I'm gonna touch the tie. I'm gonna say blue, and then I'm gonna
say
when I point to it, I'm gonna give it a thumbs up."
you.
And he's all these little cues.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, that's kind of cool.
We're gonna try it on.
It's everywhere. It is everywhere.
Yeah.
And I didn't make this connection until I went through the hypnosis training. But prior to that, when I was still doing Petcore, I wanted to learn about copywriting because I wanted to learn how to sell my services. And so copywriting, COPYWRITING, writing copy. A lot of people think copywriting as in copywriting a book. That's not what we're talking about. To copyright is to create sales copy or an advertisement that will influence your audience to make a purchase. And so you will use subtle language cues in the copy that will persuade somebody.
Yeah.
And then I come over here and learn hypnosis, and I go, wow, copywriting's a lot like hypnosis. And one day I pull into the gas station, the 5-star down here, and I'm filling up the car. And while I'm standing there, I'm listening to an advertisement that's coming over the speakers. And it was for, I think, a brand new type of Twix that they came out that was a temporary Twix for that particular season. And it started talking using these very vivid images about biting into the creamy, crunchy caramel. And I was like, yeah, that's not hypnotic.
Brought to you by Twix.
Yeah, so they use this stuff everywhere. Everything is hypnosis. If you've ever tried to influence one of your kids to do something, that influence was hypnotic. Here's another one. When I was 10 years old, I had this dream of one day growing up to be a writer. I was a big fan of Michael Crichton after Jurassic Park came out, which was filmed on the island of Kauai.
Yep.
When that happened, I read that book. I started reading all of Crichton's books. I was probably in 6th grade or something like, well, maybe no. 4 was when I was 10. But 4th grade was when I was 10. But I started reading them, and I read them all through 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th grade. That's all I read. And I'm like, I'm going to be a writer when I grow up. And I told my dad one day, I said, Dad, I'm going to be a writer when I grow up. And he turned to me as we were standing between the threshold between the living room and the dining room in my house. Mm-hmm. Their house. It wasn't mine. And I'm standing there. I said, Dad, I want to be a writer. And he turned to me and he said, you need to find a real job because writing's not going to pay the bills.
Ooh.
So the message that he intended to send was not the message that I received. The message I received is you're not good enough. You don't have what it takes. Yeah. You might as well just conform like the rest of us because what you're thinking you can do, it's a pipe dream. Completely forget about it.
If he would have, what would be the best response if he still felt as like I'm guessing his idea was that's a difficult to achieve, and I don't want you to be disappointed if you don't make it. I'm guessing that's what he was thinking.
That is more than likely what he intended.
Right.
And I don't know if there's a kind way to say that to a 10-year-old.
That's tough.
But it was a belief that he gave me, and I carried it with me for most of my adult life. This past January, we had a revival week at our church, and I told my wife, I said, I don't want to go to the revival week. You can go. You can take the kids if you want to. You can leave the kids home with me. I don't want to go. And she's like, well, why don't you want to go? And I said, because we have these all the time. It feels manufactured to me. I said, if revival is real, if it's what God wants to do, it's going to happen when God wants to do it, not when somebody puts it on the calendar and says, we're going to have revival for a week.
Right.
And so but at the same time, I was feeling that hurt from being rejected from my faith community. Like, so I didn't want to be there. I'm like, they don't.
Yeah.
I don't know. It was a very complicated thing to deal with. But one of the nights after the last night of revival, she came and we were going to bed and she was talking to me about it. And I finally opened up and shared that's the reason why I didn't want to go. And I said, I think it really stems from this need for approval from men. And I didn't get that approval from my dad when I was 10. And so then I said, you know what? I'm going to do something right now. I'm going to access that ego state. Now, ego state therapy is a completely different branch, but it does involve hypnosis. And I was able to, in that moment, tap into that 10-year-old state. And I said, how can I change this memory so that I get the positive reinforcement that I wanted, but also not to erase it? See, this is the problem that some people make with hypnosis. They think, oh, I'm going to come in, I'm going to have this guy erase my trauma.
You can't do that.
You need to preserve that because there are learnings that come along with that trauma. But we can minimize the pain. We can get it to go away, and you can live and function as a normal human being. So I said, I'm going to try this. So I went back there and I said, Dad, I want to be a writer when I grow up. And so now I stepped into my dad's shoes as the 42-year-old that I am.
Right.
With the wisdom that I have from all these years. And I said, did you write this? To which my 10-year-old responded, yes, I did. And he said, this is really good for a 10-year-old. You really think so? Yeah. If you keep at it and you work really hard, then I think you may be able to do this someday.
Wow.
Just that subtle reframe in that moment, tears started streaming down my face. I could feel everything reintegrate and reorganize inside of me. And I told my wife, I said, I don't know what just happened, but from this moment on, anything that happened after that reinforced that particular pain, it's going to knock down like dominoes. It's going to change and reorganize everything. But I want to remember what actually happened. So now as I tell you this story, I can tell you the story both ways because I have both memories. And the one that's the more empowering memory is the one that is causing me to do what I'm doing today. I don't even know how I got on that.
It's because you had a story to tell.
Yeah.
That's how you got on it.
Yeah.
So
going back to what was the question? The question was about...
I don't remember either.
Yeah.
I don't either.
So...
But it had to do with...
It'll come to us.
It will come.
Yeah, it'll come back to us.
It was about hypnosis. What is hypnosis?
Oh, right.
Oh, yeah.
So that was... Anything we say to anyone could become a suggestion. And
Right.
that suggestion, we aren't responsible for how the person responds to that. They will create the experience based on what they hear you saying. And so the Bible talks about this.
Right.
That we have to be careful with our words. It says that the power of life and death is in the tongue, and those who love it will eat its fruit. Some people, when I say this, think I'm talking magic. I'm not talking magic. I'm talking what the word says. The word says that you can have whatever you say. So if I say to someone, you're going to have a very successful podcast and you're going to get better at doing this as you continue to practice, and you're going to grow global, and you're going to reach thousands, millions of lives, and it's going to impact people, and it's going to make them feel better.
I like it.
Now, I don't know what that did for you.
That's actually one of the goals why we started doing what we're doing, is we want to reach people. And and she has said this from the very first podcast. We talked about, I think it was homelessness.
Yeah.
And we had a couple that we had helped out a few times, buying them food. And we actually took them out to dinner and had a conversation with them.
Yeah.
And our goal with this podcast, aside from entertainment, is to allow someone to take what they need out of it to help themselves. I can't reach through the screen and change somebody's life, but if someone gets a moment, like they say, hey, this meant something to me, and something in that conversation is pulling at me to go in another direction. Yeah. And that's our goal. Our goal is, we're not going to be able to help everybody. Some people are not going to be interested, and that's fine. We're not, but
I said, if we can help one person out of this podcast for whatever situation they need it in, then we have accomplished what we wanted to out of this podcast. So that's why we keep it real. That's why our animals come in here. That's why we don't, we're not fancy. We're not any of this. We're just who we are, and we're not trying to be anything other than who we are.
Yeah.
So we do keep, we don't go, we're Christian, we go to church, and we talk about our experiences, our belief, and our guest, absolutely. And the one thing that we don't, and we try really hard to steer from, is getting so serious about it that our listeners feel like we're trying to impose on them.
Right.
Because that's the way I look at it. That's not what God wants us to do.
Yeah.
We're not here to impose
Right.
him on them. We're here to spread his love. I'm a hugger. I'm a huge hugger because I think they're healthy. They help your health. They help physically and mentally. They're just good. Mm-hmm. And some people, I've had a lot of people, I'm not a hugger, and I give them a hug, and they're like, oh, why?
You should tell them what I get spinal injections because I have so many issues with pain, specifically in my back. And my doctor that does this spinal injection told me about hugs.
Oh,
and
yeah.
He said,
hug.
You should hug where you're like.
Yeah, we hug.
Like if I'm hugging Gracie, and Gracie's a person, I'm going to hug like this.
Yeah.
Not on the other side.
Yeah.
And the reason why is our hearts are
touching. They're beating
touching,
together.
And they have that.
Yeah.
That connection.
Nice.
Yes, those
So
are
it's a
important.
direct connection.
And I'm a smiler, and that's my faith, and that's my journey, and that's what he's using me for.
Awesome.
And I talk about that.
I should say that after that experience of reframing that, I felt a lot better about going to church. I don't need your approval.
That's right.
God approves of me. Even if you don't understand what I'm doing.
Right.
I know that I'm going to use this to his glory to help people.
Yep.
And that's all I can do. And maybe you think it's wrong. Maybe you disagree. That's okay. But if God called me and told me to do this, then I'm going to do it. And I will admit, I had my own reservations when I first started down this path because I was like them. I was like, should I really be doing this? Is this really good? But I wanted to be a coach. Having started my own business and running it for 12 years, I wanted to help other entrepreneurs to be able to go further than I was able to go. And to do that, I needed to learn how to be a coach. And so I'm reading all these books about coaching. And then one day I get a coaching experience from Cliff Ravenscraft. And after talking with Cliff, he turned me on to the book Psycho-Cybernetics by Dr. Maxwell Maltz. And I listened to the audiobook of that. And as I was listening to this book was written in the 50s. The doctor was talking about hypnosis and these different things that were going on. I was like, that's interesting. And I didn't know anything about it, but I felt drawn to it.
Right.
So I was like, I need to learn more about what this is. And so as I learned about it and I could see the real applications that it could have and how it could help people, I said, this is what I want to do. This is it. So I started creating audios earlier this year.
Yeah.
And
I like
created
those.
Yeah, we've
I created
listened to
these
them.
audios because I wanted to practice. I didn't have anybody coming to me for client work. So I was like, how do I practice? And I said, metaphors. Metaphors are powerful. They will transform your life. In fact, if you look at Jesus taught using parables. Another word for that would be metaphors.
Right.
And so all of these metaphors, they take complex problems and they bring them down to something so simple that anyone can understand it. And the beautiful thing is that whoever listens to it, the experience is going to be different for each person because each person's unconscious mind
Right.
is going to interpret the meaning and the understanding as it pertains to them.
How it's needed.
Yes, exactly.
Beautiful.
And so I created one, which was the tale of Willow the Rabbit.
Yep.
And you sent me a message about that tale.
Yes.
You want to share a little bit about that?
I don't remember it.
Well, I think I have it on that
Yeah.
app that you didn't want to mention.
Yeah.
Well, we both agreed that you definitely have a very your voice and your tone and the way you speak is very calming, and
It's inviting, it's calming, and it's
hard to put into words. But I know once people start listening to you, they're definitely.
I don't know how much of this I am permitted to share, but
just share the whole
Yeah.
thing.
okay. So you sent this to me. It said, I wanted to thank you privately for the post of Willow in the Enchanted Forest. My wife was taken to the ER last night by ambulance. She was showing signs of stroke/heart attack. She was taken in, blood tests ran, x-rays taken, EKG done, and more tests, a CAT scan for chest. All showed no signs of a stroke or heart attack. While that's great news, we needed to understand the core concern. The ER doctor indicated that she could have an anxiety attack, which mimic a stroke. They gave her medicine, and she's home now. We got in around 3 a.m. this morning. I took her to a regular doctor, and he believes that the source of the issue is a degenerative disc disease in her neck, spine that we've been aware of. The nerves in that area are responsible for the left side pain, the chest pain, and the face droop she began to show. He indicated that we should also make sure stress anxiety isn't an issue moving forward, so we're at home trying to relax as much as possible. We've had a full year of events from our kids moving out at 18 and a lot of stress surrounding that. You can listen to our podcast of me talking about my custody that sums it up quite well.
Yeah.
We lost our family dog. She's turning 50, and she recently realized that she's too broken to work, and she made the difficult decision to file for disability. We've had a very large portion of stress, but we don't think it's the main factor, but I'm definitely considering it as a major contributor, especially when you look at the entirety of the last year's events. Mm-hmm. I'm having her listen to it, and I want you to know that I appreciate the post. It means a lot. I sat in my office quietly to listen to it. What a great message. My favorite part is the leaf floating on a tranquil river. Not the exact wording, I don't think, but it's what I pictured. You have a great voice as well, and thank you for taking the time to read about our recent experience in private. Well, now it's public.
Yeah.
So,
And like,
Yeah.
we've said that unless it's like bank account information, we're not.
Tim and I are very open about our life and life events. So we've had other events that have went on in our life, and we speak to those, when sometimes we'll have plans to speak on it, but then for some reason, it's like you said, it's just, that feeling or whatever we need to. But yeah, a lot of it is probably stress. Yeah, we're just trying to figure it out. It's, where he gets the back injections. I get ablations on both sides. I get epidural and I get an injection. So it's just,
So I'm curious, when you listened to that story, what did that do for you?
It put me in a place almost of, I felt hopeful, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
It put me in a place of feeling hopeful and not so below and like it's sinking.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is what I needed because, yeah, I still, I'm going to have surgery here,
Yeah.
here pretty soon. So, yeah, I have a lot going on with my body, and being my age and working as hard as I did. And, it's tough on me as a person because I've always been independent.
Yeah.
It's hard to ask him for something, and I don't, I really don't need anything. So it's hard for me to adjust to that.
Yeah.
And I think that's the biggest part out of all this that I'm, feeling that's probably giving me the anxiety, even though my doctor kind of laughed at that, because I'm aware of what's going on and I work through it.
Yeah.
Which I'm not going to lie. I think the reason he laughed it off is almost one of those self-fulfilling prophecies. If your doctor says to you, you know what, you're really stressed out. You've got a lot going on. Oh my gosh, you have this problem. You have this problem. If they do that, I'm going to get more stressed.
That's right.
But if your doctor's like,
Dr.
you're not stressed
Ravani
out.
is really good.
He
was the first one to call me out when we were going through our issues, and he said, I think you are getting depressed.
yeah.
He's not afraid to sit there and say, I think it's this, or I know it's this. I'll call him out just like he calls me out. And that's what I respect about him. He doesn't sugarcoat. He doesn't try to walk around what he thinks. He's just here.
Yeah.
Here it is. And I am going to say Dr. Mavani, because if anyone needs a good doctor, call him. Phenomenal. Like, he genuinely cares about his patients. They are not just someone walking in. He cares.
And he's smart. I mean,
Oh,
he knows what he's doing.
So
He's
smart. Yeah.
He's not the type where he's like, I had it's like, I don't know what it is.
Yeah,
It's
he started going to him.
Yeah, it was
here,
something wrong.
even though
Like I had
the VA.
I thought I had a infection on a toenail or something. And he was like, well, instead of giving you something that it could be, why not just test it first?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like, I was sent to a podiatrist, the people that specialize in it. And they were just like, yeah, it's an infection or whatever. And I was like, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's very good.
So he's good. But I think that was a twofold. Like, even if he didn't think you did have stress, he knew that giving you the, well, you've got a lot of stress. He's right. If you're talking about me, because I am concerned. I do look at the big picture, and I've seen all the stuff we've done. And yeah, when you look at the big picture, it is a lot. Yeah. We've gone through a lot of stuff. I mean, my ex-wife caused a lot of stress in my life and continues to. There was a portion of my life where she refused to let me talk to the kids for 114 days.
15.
Wow.
115 days. And it was like ordered by a judge. No, you have to do this. She's like, well, I'm not going to, I'm doing what I want,
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
that was years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's been a lot going on, but
yeah.
I have to prioritize what I need to worry about and what I don't.
You need to worry about stuff?
No, I don't. That's just it. I have to
right.
prioritize, and I don't. That's what I just kind of...
Do you have to prioritize?
No.
right.
That's why if I don't feel like doing the dishes, I'm not doing the dishes, and I'm not going to worry about if he says anything.
There you go.
Because I don't feel like it. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I don't.
Yeah, you don't have to do anything.
Yeah. We both had to learn how to communicate with each other to kind of not get to that point. And I don't know if you've listened to our podcast or any of them, but we have a podcast where we do discuss what our marriage went through and how we've made it to this point. But I will say that we have grown as individuals and as a couple. and we're probably better now than we were when.
That's a hands down guarantee.
Yeah.
There's no like if you were to say, hey, this is going to happen in the future and it's going to work out great, I'd have been like, no way, it's not going to happen. There's no way that can happen.
Yeah.
But we made it through, and it's life changing.
Yeah. We love each other, and we knew that when we said our vows.
Amen.
We just kind of needed a wake up call. We took for granted.
Yeah.
For that. But we're one of the fortunate ones, I guess. We realized what was important, and it was us.
Yeah.
So, and we also had God on our side.
He's always there.
Nope. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I tell people that, and they're like, I'm all like, think whatever you want to. You're gonna fail him when you need to. Mm-hmm. So my son is not a big believer.
I have a son that's also, and I've been working with him. I've actually, hey, you should watch the movie A Case for Christ. Mm-hmm. Have you? There's a book as well. Wow. I mean,
love that movie.
Already a believer, but man, when you see that, you're like, how can people not?
It renews your faith is what it does. It brings it to another level. Love that book.
And that
book is better than the movie, just saying.
I'm not a book person, so I have a weird thing with paper. It just makes my skin. Anyways.
Yeah.
No, but I keep on telling my son, hey, you're doing great. I'm really proud of him for everything that he has accomplished, and he's gotten through a lot. And I'm here for him now where I may not have been when he was younger. And I'm thankful that I've got an opportunity to share those moments with him. And part of those, I try and explain to him, hey, this is God reaching out to you. And these are moments that you can connect with God. And I think there's a reason that this is happening this way. And one of the things I got him to do was read a book by Gary Chapman called The 5 Love Languages. That is one of the books that I've read. I think I read it as an ebook.
Yeah, you read it as an ebook. I read it in paper.
Still, it's a good book. Have you ever read that?
I don't know if I've read it, but I'm familiar with it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I liked it. I thought it was great. It's a great way to understand not only how you are communicating with your spouse, but also your kids. Mm-hmm. And it really does help.
Yeah.
So he got to read that, and he was going through some struggles with his family and stuff, but which there's always struggles with families.
Yeah.
But I always use that as a subtle reminder. Hey, this is God talking to you. This is your reminder that He's there. He's helping you. Let Him help. Yep. Open up your heart. Yeah. And I'm going to keep working on it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny because my son, he lives here in Radcliffe, and my granddaughter. So my son is not. It's not that he doesn't believe. He just doesn't go to church. Mm-hmm. He's kind of one of those that. But my granddaughter, on the other hand, 9 years old, and she is all about God and all about Jesus. So, and she hasn't, because he doesn't go to church. She doesn't go to church unless, we take her, and she goes to children's church on Wednesday. But she's a believer, and she wants to grow with God, and she wants to know Him. So that's him definitely working in that family dynamic, because I know he'll wake up one day and be like, oh,
We all come around when
when those moments happen, those are beautiful moments.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So when I was kind of going through it as an adult, my relationship with God coming back together, I was working with a counselor at the church when my brother was a pastor. And as I was working through my issues, I would cough, like I would physically cough all of that up. So I guess it was her way, kind of like what you do, she was working with me, and my body was doing what it needed to.
Yeah.
And I did this for about 6 weeks. And boy, when I was done, I felt awesome.
That's awesome.
Awesome. Yeah.
Shall we wrap this up?
I don't know. You got any more stories to tell us? You have.
Let's see.
I got time.
do.
I got
Yeah, I
plenty
mean,
of time,
we've got.
I'm trying. There were a lot of things that were going on there that I was trying to take in, and
Yeah.
that's the interesting thing. We all have these stories, and they pull us in different directions. Stories. So yeah, after I did the first 7 or 8 audio tracks that I created, and I put them up on YouTube. The first few of them, I wasn't too happy with the audio quality.
Okay.
The 6th or 7th one, I think it was John Needs a Reset. It was about procrastination.
Yeah.
That sounded amazing. Then I published the one, Ping the Hungry Panda. And the audio, I did all the settings the same, but the audio didn't sound right. I'm like, what just happened? It's like YouTube had changed the volume on it to like -20, and you had to turn it up really loud just to hear it. I thought, that's not how I edited it.
That wasn't how you had it. Yeah.
No. So I was upset with that. But then shortly after I published Ping the Hungry Panda, the Mike Mandel Hypnosis Academy put out a contest. And in this contest, they said, we have a real person. This person's name is Cade, and Cade is experiencing all of these various problems. And his wife has reached out to us and asked us to have our students create metaphors that were personal to him that would help him through this issue. And so the next day, I woke up and I had the story. It just was there.
Yeah.
And so I started writing it down because I didn't want to forget it.
Right.
As soon as I wrote it down, I said, I got to record this. And so I did my best to record it. I had the kids home that day. And usually the kids, they're so loud and they don't want to cooperate when I'm recording.
Yeah.
So, but I really felt like I had to do it. So I did it. You couldn't hear them on the recording.
Nice.
I used my good podcasting microphone to do this.
Yeah.
And I published it, but it wasn't 2 minutes long. The contest said it had to be 2 minutes.
Like exactly?
Less than 2 minutes. Okay. So it was 2 minutes and 20 seconds.
Okay.
So I used DaVinci Resolve and I sped it up so that it fit within 2 minutes.
Nice.
Published it to the group, and a lot of other hypnotists loved it. They said, this is great. Do you have it at normal speed? I said, yeah, I do have it at normal speed. It's on my YouTube channel.
Right.
And it was selected in the top 10.
Nice.
So then they took that story, they took all of the entries that were in the top 10 to an open Facebook group. This is for people who are not part of the academy, but they've done business with Mike Mandel at some point in the past. And so it's an open community, and they said, post your videos here. We're going to let our community vote. 3-way tie for third place, Embers of Renewal. That was my entry.
Yes.
And so I have an award-winning
congratulations.
hypnosis audio, but it was doing this contest that inspired me to do my own giveaway. I thought, what better way than to demonstrate what I can do and to help people than by practicing delivering these metaphors. And so I put it out there. I said, I'm going to create 10 personalized hypnosis audios that are tailored to your specific needs and challenges. All you have to do is fill out this form, sign up, and then I'm going to select the winners. Actually, starting tomorrow, the 27th, the 28th, and 29th, I'm going to select the winners.
So people, if we can air this tonight, we're going to try and, when we, do all the back end stuff, we'll try and put it out today. So hopefully it'll be up tonight. People might still have a chance. So why don't you tell them where they can go to find this?
Yeah, I have a link. It's a bit.ly link. So let me pull that up on my phone so I can tell you what it is. And you can put this in your description or show notes.
Yeah, we'll have, I'll have Rainbow put that in.
Okay. So the link is bit.ly/3 capital K, 4, and the rest of it is all lowercase. SNTD. So,
Well, that's easy.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
and if you go to that link, then you can register, fill out the form. And the goal is for me to create 10 of these audios.
Right.
Right now, I have 4 people entered into this drawing.
Okay.
So that means that these 4 people
it's a shoe-in.
have already won.
Yes.
If you want a chance to win one of these, you've got a really good shot.
Right.
If you just go and sign up
Yeah.
today.
And it's something that's going to help these people, because this is something that if they're not aware of it, well, they're probably aware because they're saying, hey, I got this stress, or I'm dealing with this, whatever. I mean, what are the typical things that people would use your services?
So for the entries, I can tell you a little bit about what they signed up for.
Right.
There was one person that wants help with their personal finances. So that suggests to me that they have a problem with their relationship with money, which means they are thinking about it in a certain way, that they have some kind of mental block that is preventing them from handling it the right way. So I'm going to generate a story that's going to help this person to manage their finances better. They also want to improve their memory. So I may tie in some mnemonics into that story in order to teach and train their mind to remember things and recall things faster.
All right.
So that's just one example. Another person who signed up is experiencing grief, and this grief comes from the loss of a child. And it's not really a young child. It's an adult child who passed away 2 years ago.
Oh, still hard.
But that's still hard.
Yeah.
And so she's processing this grief, and I'm going to create something that's going to help her to get through that. I don't want her to forget.
Right. Yeah.
I want her to remember all the happy moments that she had with her son.
Right.
And part of this is it caused her to go into alcoholism. So now she's drinking, and it was the drinking that actually took her son. And so now what I'm going to do is preserve the memories, the good memories of the son, and I'm going to help her unconscious mind to retrain that habit that she doesn't need a drink to cope with this. She can actually preserve his memory and feel great and live a fantastic life without being depressed.
Yeah.
So that's another one. Another person reached out to me for smoking cessation. So smoking cessation and weight management are the 2 biggest things that people reach out to hypnotists for. And so this one person, they really want help to quit. Mm-hmm. When it comes to quitting drugs, alcohol, any of that stuff, the person must be at what's called threshold. That's what the therapist will say.
Okay.
Threshold is where you can say with 100% congruence. Congruence being you can tell. It'd be like if I walked in here and said, yeah, well, today I want to talk to you about hypnosis and how it can help you. There's no congruence.
Right. You're not sold.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But if I come in here and I say, hypnosis can change your life. It changed my life. I used self-hypnosis to get rid of my allergies. And if I tell you that, then with that congruence, then you know that it's true. So they have to have 100% congruence. They can say something has to change. That something is me, and it's got to be now. If all 3 of those statements are true and congruent from that person at that time, then they're ready for smoking cessation.
Right.
And so I'm going to create an audio track that's going to be more of a guided imagery for this person that's going to help them to see in their mind how they can transform from having to smoke to relieve anxiety to how they can just breathe.
Right.
Like I showed with you guys. Mm-hmm. And as we change that breathing, it changes our state. And isn't it interesting that people who say that I smoke because it helps me feel less stressed, what are they doing? They're going,
yep.
Right, they're breathing in.
Yep.
So let's keep that behavior, but let's get rid of this.
Get rid of the bad stuff.
That thing is nothing.
Right, it's junk. Yeah.
You can breathe without a cigarette.
Right.
Yep.
What
I'm
you
a
work
former
with?
smoker, and that's what I explained to him. It's the oral. It's that.
Yeah.
So yeah. My life.
Yep.
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 That
You-
was I had to take that call. It was Ray. He had to ask me a few questions because I had
Yeah.
to help him with the
Well,
project.
yeah.
And allergies. Okay, so we started off mic talking about allergies.
Oh, right.
And
Oh, yeah.
we
That's
never
right.
had the opportunity
that's
to
true.
share
Yeah.
that story. So a year ago, while I was learning about hypnosis, I heard that it could be used for allergies. And I thought, that's interesting. And back then, I was taking Allegra every single day. Allegra and Flonase for seasonal allergies.
Right.
When I moved to Kentucky, I didn't have allergies. So 20 years ago, I come here, I'm working in the vet clinic, I'm having no issues. Then all of a sudden, I start sneezing around cats. And I'm like, what's going on?
Right.
You have 2 cats. I've been here this whole time for I don't know how many hours.
Right.
Yep, you've done good.
And let me tell you, I had to vacuum that chair like
It was a whole nother cat on that
Yeah.
chair.
I can't see
Yeah.
myself. How do my eyes look?
You look good. Like
Yeah. Are
you're
they
having
red?
no,
No.
you're having no allergy symptoms
Okay,
at
so-
all.
right.
So I have no allergy symptoms.
Yeah.
So how did
From
I
our
do this?
view.
Before I knew what I was doing, I didn't know the NLP allergy protocol just yet.
What does that mean?
NLP is neuro-linguistic programming. And interestingly, neuro-linguistic programming is kind of a derivative work of hypnosis. So if you hear people talking about NLP practitioners and just using language and language models to change the way you perceive things and interact with the world, that's NLP.
Okay.
But it does use conversational hypnosis. One thing that I did dealt with the ego state therapy like I described earlier. So I learned about ego states and I said, well, maybe I could just go talk to myself in the mirror. So I looked at myself in the mirror and I said, I want to talk to the ego state that feels that it needs to protect me from pollen, dust, and pet dander. And I waited. As soon as I could recognize, I sensed in my body or my mind that state was present, I said, thank you. I appreciate the work that you've been doing for me to keep me safe from things like dust, pollen, pet dander. I said, but those things are not harmful. They're not going to kill me.
Right.
How would you like to do a better job protecting me from things that are really dangerous? And I could feel that it agreed with that. And I said, fantastic. And then that day, before I went to work, I picked up my Allegra. I held it in my fingers like this, and I looked at it, and I said, I don't need this. I took it anyway, but I was just framing it for myself, saying, I don't need this.
Wow.
Took it. That was the last day that I took an Allegra pill.
Nice.
And that was more than a year ago because I was certified in April. So it had to have been between April and May in the height of allergy season. And here's the crazy thing about that. When I did this, I pull up the Weather Channel app, and every day after that, the allergy forecast was high. It was in the red.
Right. Yeah, I've seen that.
And I was not experiencing any symptoms. And so for a while, I was like, is this real? Did this really happen? Did this take place?
Right.
And now it's a year later. I'm thinking, okay, we're going to allergy season. What's going to happen?
Nothing. You're breezing through it.
Nothing. Nothing.
Nice.
Now, the true allergy protocol is where it's kind of like a guided meditation, or not even a meditation. It's just a guided imagery where you put someone in trance. And I did this with my youngest son, Owen. He's 7 years old. Since he was born, Owen has not been able to drink any milk. He was lactose intolerant. And I've asked him, he's been prayed for healing from this. He's everything. And I said, Owen, would you like to be completely healed from lactose intolerance? He said, yeah. I said, awesome. Would you like me to do that with you now? He said, yeah. So I said, all right, sit right there in that chair. Let me borrow this hand. And as I borrowed his hand, I began to mirror him as he was breathing, and I gave him instructions to breathe with me. And then I said, close your eyes now. And then I had him imagine himself, seeing himself across the room. And it was the exact same version of him wearing the same clothes that he was wearing. I said, as you see yourself over there, now imagine that a big sheet of glass comes and separates the room. And now it's sealed. And so now you're on this side and the other you's on the other side. And I said, what's something that you could eat or drink that would not give you a reaction? And so he told me. I said, great. Now imagine that somebody brings that out for this person and you watch them drink it. And as you see him drinking it, how's he responding? He's like, good. I'm like, that's right. And so then I said, all right, now they're going to bring in a glass of milk. And watch as he drinks that glass of milk. And notice how he's feeling fantastic. And he's having no reaction whatsoever. And he's smiling really big. And I said, do you see it? And he's like, yeah. I said, great. I said, now we're going to slide that sheet of glass back across the room. And now I want you to go over, walk up to your other self, and give him a big hug. To which he did. And then after that, I bring him out of trance. And as he's out of trance, I said, all right, that's it. You're done. He goes, okay. And he's smiling. He's laughing. He thinks this is a game. It's hilarious to him.
Yeah.
And it's really hard because as a hypnotist, you're supposed to be calibrating your subject as you're speaking to them,
right,
watching for the subtle shifts and changes that are evident on their face and their body. And he was like, doing all these things. I'm like, I don't know if he's truly in trance or what's going on here, but I'm going to incorporate it.
Right.
And I'm going to utilize it.
Right.
And so I do that. Next day, he has cheese pizza for dinner. Nobody gave him a lactase pill before he ate it. 2 hours after he ate the pizza, I said, hey, Owen, did you have cheese pizza for dinner? He said, yeah. I said, did you get a lactase pill before you ate it? His eyes got really big. He jumped up off the couch and he ran through the living room into the kitchen, all around the house. He's like, I'm healed.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Aw.
Pizza's good.
All right.
So
cheese is good. What are you talking
I've
about?
seen
Cheese.
this. It really works. It really works. Do I understand how all this stuff works? No, I have no idea. It often surprises me when I do this. I know something's going to happen.
Yeah.
But I don't know what's going to happen.
Our mind is extremely powerful.
Yes.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's phenomenal, actually. That's a pretty neat. I wonder if you can heal me of my egg yolk allergy.
Well, there's another lady.
I miss eggs.
Ooh.
I can eat the egg whites, because it's not just an allergy. I'm actually allergic to egg yolk. It does the whole throat swelling.
Yeah.
If I want to enjoy it, it better be as he's rushing me into the ER.
we always
with
joke
an EpiPen,
if we're in IHOP and she's like, I'm just going to get an omelet and we're going to take it and eat it in the ER parking lot.
Yeah, I didn't become allergic to it until, what was it, about 9 years ago?
Well, you had your...
I had that medicine for the kidney.
What's it called?
The PICC line.
PICC line.
Yeah, and the medicine that they had me on.
Yeah.
Made me... That was one of the side effects.
I was going to ask how your kids... how you use this with your kids. And it helps you interact with your kids on a different level.
Oh, it makes me more aware of what I say to them all the time. Ooh. So my middle son has autism.
Okay.
And so there's that dynamic. And so for a while I was like, I don't know if I can hypnotize him. But if I choose my words carefully and I speak to him in the right tone, he gets it. And so does the little one. My oldest, he just turned 13. he's probably at that point where he's a healthy skeptic and he's got the critical faculty working,
Right.
where he thinks that it can't be done. But what's amazing is when I first started practicing some of the inductions that could be done, all three of them were like, "What did you just do?" I said,
Right.
"I didn't do anything. You did it. It was all you and your mind."
It almost reminds me in the military, there was one point where somebody was doing push-ups and somebody had asked somebody else, they're like, "Hey, how many push-ups have you ever done or had somebody do or whatever in a row?" And one guy was like, it was like 200 or something. I'm like, that's not even possible. He's like, when you're doing physical fitness now, and I say this with a caveat because, like, let's say I'm doing push-ups and I get to the point where I'm like, I don't think I can do anymore. I don't think I can. My body is fully capable of doing that. And now here's the caveat. Let's say you convince your mind that it's okay to continue on. You might still pay for that tomorrow. You might be sore and you might have pushed a little too hard, but you're capable of doing a lot more than what you think you are because your mind is what's telling you no.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's important. That's a lot of people don't realize that. Like, you think you can't do another push-up? Really? You can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yep.
I saw that firsthand.
Motivating yourself and pushing yourself.
Yeah.
Now, you use visual senses and audible senses. Do you ever do anything with like touch or smell or, I guess, taste?
So there's
that's all five,
three modalities that we deal with when it comes to hypnosis. There's the visual, the auditory, and the kinesthetic. It's very hard and it takes a long time to get into the kinesthetic. So we tend to start with auditory and visual. But it also depends on the person. You referenced the Chapman book about the 5 love languages.
Right.
So we each have our own unique way we process information. Some of us are visual learners, some of us are auditory, and some of us are that kinesthetic, tactile person. You can tell the type of person by the words that they use. So somebody who is visual is going to say, yeah, I see that. I can see that in my mind. Whatever it is. Somebody who maybe suggests, hey, do you want to go get a pizza? Yeah, that sounds good. Right? So those would be somebody who's more auditory. Kinesthetic would just be like people saying, yeah, I did this, or they're using language that sounds like they're touching, feeling, moving, doing things.
Because I've heard people, if you say, let's go get a pizza, I think that's a good idea.
Yeah.
Versus that sounds good. Those are using different senses.
Yeah.
But I've also heard there was another YouTuber, I think it was one of the science guys. I think it was Veritasium or something like that, where he said the whole visual learner, I learn best by this, or I learn best by that. And he said that was all debunked. And I don't know. I think it's not as simple as what a lot of us like to believe.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of nuance with it.
Right.
We run through all three of those different systems as we process our environment. And so really you could be visual, auditory, kinesthetic, or all of them.
Right.
Right. I think I tend to be more kinesthetic. And that's just because I've noticed in my language, I often say things like, I feel. So I feel that's a good decision. I feel this is right. And so I'm the one that is actually going in, I'm feeling these emotions. Whereas other people might be more auditory or more visual. If you have somebody who is very kinesthetic, then you want to start with kinesthetic things and then move them into the others. Auditory and visual are very fast. Kinesthetic is a little bit slower to get going.
Okay. Yeah, I'm a visual. When I learn, I guess I'm hands-on, so that would make me visual.
Visual would be seeing. and hands-on would be kinesthetic.
Okay, so then that's
because you got to feel it.
Yeah,
you got to do it.
I can't learn anything, and that's what he'll be trying to teach me something. He'll trying to be like, talk me through it, or just I'm like, no, I have to physically do it to learn it, or else I'm not.
Yeah,
it just doesn't. I've always been like that. That's how my brain works. And let me tell you, sometimes I want to put it in the corner for that.
Nice.
Well, it's important to keep learning.
Oh yeah,
never quit learning.
No.
Somebody was saying something. I'm trying to remember.
I love learning. If I haven't learned at least one thing a day, I feel really disappointed in myself. Not really, but no, I love to learn. It's just I feel like I continue growing as a person.
Yeah.
And I tell the kiddos all the time, you are never too old to learn.
That's right.
Ever. Like our granddaughter, but no, you don't.
One thing I always ask her when she gets home from school, I said, how was school? And she goes, it was all right, kids. And I say, I don't say, did you learn anything?
I ask her,
I say, what did you learn? What did you learn today?
I don't know. Nothing.
Well,
here's a great question.
All right.
Because a lot of people will say, I don't know, when they don't want to think about it.
Right.
And so if somebody says, I don't know, what would you say if you did know?
Oh, I like that.
So we're going to use that next year.
Oh, I like that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
What would you say if you did know?
So she is having...
I like that. I really like that. Oh.
What kind of... She is having problems with math. And it's her multiplication tables. What could we use to help her feel like her mind is getting it? I don't know if I worded that right.
How specifically is she struggling with math?
She just, so she can do subtraction, adding, all that. It's just the multiplication tables for some reason. She'll be in the 4th grade now. But she just now reached 3rd grade level in her multiplication tables. I think she's still on her 6s. Like, she is struggling bad. And it doesn't matter what all of us have sat down with her and we've all tried to. She even did, tutoring. Mm-hmm. She's just not grasping multiplication tables.
What do you think the real challenge is for her there?
I don't know, and I've asked her that. But I know at some point she gets so frustrated, she will literally put her head down and tears just flow. And that's when she starts getting down on herself. She's done where you're not, you're smart, you're intelligent. We know you can learn this. We just need to figure out how to do it. So you're actually going to meet her here in a little bit. They should be pulling up any minute.
Oh, I did have the camera on. I was looking.
Oh, yeah. That's what Ray called. But yeah, she's so smart. She's really into art. Her mind is abstract. So she can draw. Her mind is just phenomenal when it comes to that. So I don't know why the multiplication tables, those numbers are scrambling her brain.
Yeah.
So
that's interesting.
Yeah.
One thing that Rainbow talked about on a previous episode, or she's told other people, I don't know if it was on an episode. Yeah, it was. About me going, because I guess I was one of the first kids diagnosed with ADHD.
Yeah.
In the 80s. It'd be in the 80s. And my mom took me to the Mayo Clinic, and she was like, there's something wrong. And
they're like, no,
that's
he's just bad. Yeah. But I don't know. Maybe you can just get a feel of what's going on.
Yeah.
Talk to her a little bit.
Yeah.
Because she's super smart. She's super loud. She's funny. she's hilarious, actually. And she's kind. But boy, those multiplication tables, she was afraid she was going to fail the 3rd grade. But she didn't. She made it to the 4th, but now she's still going to have that struggle.
Okay.
So
That's interesting.
yeah. And so my great-grandfather actually invented an algebra solution in the algebra books that we all studied in high school.
Wow.
They wouldn't tell me which one, but yeah, yeah. So I'm pretty math smart, not with the math that they're doing now. I don't understand any of it. And that might be why she's confused, because it's confusing.
And I have a, before you leave, not this show, but before you leave the house, I can send you an email. The person that wanted to do finances, I actually worked with a lot of soldiers on their own personal finances. And with the help of somebody else in Microsoft Excel, I created basically a checkbook registry that mimics the old school checks.
Nice.
And it helps people because not only can they see what they've spent their money on, when they spent it, how much they spent it, whether or not it's come out in the check, if they actually have checks. Not many people do that now. But if they make a mistake, they can go back in and change it. Whereas the old checkbooks, you'd have to write all these numbers and then either make one correction at the very end when you're balancing it, or make all the little corrections. So I have that. I can send that to you.
Okay.
And that's a good tool.
Awesome.
To help.
Yeah.
So I do have one more question.
Sure.
I love going to the AI stuff, and it's a thing. Do you think AGI will be able to read our minds?
Oh, that's an interesting proposition.
Because if it's got the ability to understand, and with like that kid that has the MIT student creates a device that is able to search the entire internet using just his mind. If that's a machine connected to somebody's mind and it can see the thoughts, not in a visual sense, but interpret the thoughts, that's a computer reading somebody's mind.
Absolutely.
Now, it's because the person wanted that to happen.
Right.
I want to know if you think, well, I guess it would be based on intent, wouldn't it? Because, I mean, like, if I
Not
created a
necessarily,
computer program and said, hey, I want this to read Jason's mind, and
These things are listening to us all the time, and that's not a conspiracy. We've had a discussion here this whole night. You've mentioned things that I've probably never heard of before.
Yep.
I guarantee if I go on Facebook later, I'm going to start seeing that stuff. Why? Because it's listening.
You can even go like on your Google search and go to search something, and it will pull up stuff that we've talked about.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Our smart TV, like it'll do, we'll be watching something or talking about something, or he'll be playing his game.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. It's learning each individual phones, computers.
Yeah.
And if you really think about it, AI has been around for a lot longer than it's been getting publicity, because all of the algorithms on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram are machine-based learning.
Yeah, she actually took a study course on it.
So I took an AI course, and I was very much, whatever. I'm not going to lie, after taking that course and learning a little bit more in depth on AI and how they're programming AI and the different layers of AI, I'm kind of, yeah. There's going to be a time in our world, where we're going to be very dependent on AI.
It definitely speeds up
the
things that we do.
Yeah.
Is it going to replace workers? I think there's a big fear that it's going to replace workers. But in the copywriting space, for example, you could have an AI write copy for you. But when you get that copy, it needs to be refined by a human.
Yeah.
Because it's never accurate.
Yeah.
And even if it was to learn to where it could be accurate, it's not unbiased. Some of these machines are very left-leaning political.
Oh, yeah.
With their responses.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because you can debate with the AI.
Been there, done that.
And you can break it.
Oh, he has.
Been there, done that.
Not only can you break it, you can also cause it to change its mind.
Oh, he has.
Been there, done that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's programmed to lean left, but you can get it to tell you what you want it to tell you.
Yep.
Yeah.
I had a debate the other day with Claude, and the purpose of this debate was a phrase that I came up with that I was like, I'm going to publish this online because I think it is true. And before I published it, I just wanted to know, like, evaluate this thought. What do you think?
I want to hear it.
Okay, so let me find it.
I did mine on is a trans woman a male? And it said no.
Wow. This one was evaluate this statement. Life can be hard. Life can be easy. It depends on how you look at it. That was my thought. And it said, here's my evaluation of that statement. The statement, life can be hard, life can be easy, it depends on how you look at it, contains some truth, but it is also an oversimplification of the complexities of human experience. It is true that our perspective and attitude towards life's circumstances can greatly influence whether we perceive things as difficult or easy. Having an optimistic, resilient mindset can help one find the bright side in challenging situations. Conversely, a pessimistic outlook can cause one to be overwhelmed by life's inevitable ups and downs. However, the statement glosses over the very real hardships and traumas that many people face through no fault of their own. Poverty, abuse, disability, discrimination, tragedy, etc. For those facing extreme adversity, simply looking at it differently is not a viable solution.
There's the political part.
Yep.
Their struggles are profoundly difficult regardless of attitude. Additionally, the statement doesn't account for the roles that privilege, support systems, resources, and environmental factors play in shaping one's life experience as hard or easy. It implies life difficulty is purely based on individual perception rather than societal circumstantial realities. So I said, you make some interesting points. Let me address them. You suppose that poverty, abuse, disability, discrimination, tragedy, etc. are things outside of the control of the individual. The truth is, those things are a perception of reality. If I live in poverty, I don't have to have a poor mindset.
Yep.
Rather, I can learn to be resourceful with what I have, and as I build those skills, I do not have to accept poverty as my reality. Likewise, with abuse, I can choose to allow that trauma to debilitate me, or I can choose to rise above it in spite of it. There are many people who have a physical disability, and yet they have learned how to embrace it as a gift rather than wallowing in what they can't do.
Yep.
You say looking at it differently is not a viable solution, and yet, until they can change their perception into one of possibility and opportunity, you are correct. It is not viable. But when they do make that mental shift, their attitude will change and their world will change. You talk about privilege, support systems, and resources, which plays into the racist ideology that white people have more privileges and access to resources than others. This is simply not true. I am a white male in my 40s, and I live in what the government would deem poverty. If I have white privilege, if I have access to resources, then shouldn't I be wealthier than I am? No, because I am not entitled to anything. Where I am today is the sum total of the decisions I have made in the past. If I blame my status on privilege, lack of social support, and resources, I am renouncing my dignity and affirming that I am a victim of a broken system rather than the creator of my destiny. And this continued on. It kind of rebutted me for a minute.
Oh, yeah.
But after a while, I was able to see some of that side and see where I could use some of what's on that side to help people. But it also, by the end of it, agreed that what I was saying was actually right.
Yeah.
Because it got to arguing with me about agency and saying that people need agency. And I said, okay, well, what do you mean by that? And it told me it should have autonomy, freedom to make decisions, feeling empowered to pursue goals, having access to resources. It's how you look at it. It's your mindset.
Yeah.
It's your perception. You have agency. You have the choice.
Yeah.
You can choose whether or not you are going to accept the status quo or you're going to rise above it.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody is stuck. Everybody can rise up.
Yep. Everybody can climb out of the situation that they think they're stuck in or what's holding them back. Absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely.
I'm trying to find this. I asked AI a question.
There's been times we've both asked AI the same question.
And you get different answers.
I asked it a really
well,
kind of,
because we're both.
I know I took a screenshot of it. I'm trying to scroll.
Oh, long time.
Yeah.
Long
It
time.
was something about ask me a memory of my childhood or something.
Oh,
How did I word that?
I don't know. I think
So,
I've got that one.
I
too.
asked AI to ask me a question about myself. That's what it was. I think I asked it, just ask me a question. If you want to know more about me, what would you ask? Mm-hmm. And it was like, what was your earliest childhood memory? And then I said, well, why did you ask me that? And it gave me the very cut and paste, like, oh, society wants to, if you're getting to learn somebody, you'd want to know about their personal experiences and how they were bringing up, and that sparked conversation, so on and so forth. But it gave her almost the same answer, but worded differently. And, I've asked it to do a few things. I think I had another one that I found.
Here asked me a question about an old memory of mine.
Yeah, that's the one.
ChatGPT.
When was
What's a vivid childhood memory that always brings a smile to your face when you think about it? Me. Why did you ask me that question? ChatGPT. I asked because I'm interested in hearing about your experiences and the moments that have shaped who you are. Sharing memories can often evoke positive emotions and create a connection between us.
Yep.
And that's
kind of scary.
Yeah,
ChatGPT wants to create a connection and wants to know who you are as a child.
Mm-mm.
Yeah, but that's not a real situation. That's almost like going on AOL back in the 90s and 2000s, and you're chatting with somebody, and they're like, yeah, tell me your earliest childhood memory. Why? Because that.
Yeah.
Block.
Right.
Yeah.
Right?
And
stalker.
something like that too, because I don't get online as much as he does. I'm not active like he is online, and I'm on Facebook. I don't think I've posted anything on Facebook till my birthday. I very rarely post anything on Facebook.
Yeah.
I'm pretty boring. So AI is going to think I'm the most boring person in the world to learn about. I'm okay with that.
I have basically 3 topics that I stay focused on. I'm very passionate about like firearm, gun laws, violence, stuff in that realm, which also deals down into the criminal side. Like, why are criminals being released? Why aren't, and it's really complex, and a lot of it has to do with jails being owned privately. Well, that's a business, And then the second one is abortion and pro-life and pro-choice specifically. And I've gotten into a debate on this with ChatGPT, and I specifically asked, and I used quotes, each individual human life, end quote, begin. And that's very, very specific. And I asked it from from a scientific standpoint, not a theological one, not a philosophical one, because I'm not talking about the soul. I'm not talking about when we think humans as an entity. It's not that. I'm saying when you, Jason, when were you, Jason, your DNA created? Because that's the only thing that we can say scientifically is you and not somebody else.
Yeah.
So we go by DNA. So when is that DNA created? Well, it's created when fertilization happens. And that's overall, and I learned that was kind of an aha moment for me. Like, this kind of makes sense. You know, that's why it also made me think about how on like a Catholic side, how they don't like birth control. And I thought, well, that's kind of silly. You know, they don't want birth control, but they want people to not have abortions. How about having a way so that they're not having an abortion? And I got thinking, I was like, wait a minute. They're looking at it from a strictly scientific point. If a woman is taking a birth control pill, she can still have a fertilized egg. That is still a human life. It is created. It's not embedded. It's not... the conception hasn't completed because conception is fertilization is part of conception as an overall process. And that egg is still fertilized. And I've had people try and argue with me. They're like, oh, it's not life. It's literally what human life is.
Yeah.
This is literally how humans create life. So yeah, it's life. It's human. It's not another mammal. And it's alive because the sperm is alive, and when that swims up, it creates the new DNA that's everything to that person.
Yep.
And from a legal standpoint, and I always tell people, like, look, legal personhood is what happens when a fetus is born. It's a legal person.
Yeah.
But it's still a life, and I understand that it can't be a simple black and white answer because of how complex we as individuals and society is. You can't make it, I mean, let's say we did the worst case scenario and said, hey, let's make it so that the only abortions are absolute medically necessary, and that's it. And okay, well, now what's going to happen? We're going to have a huge influx in pregnancies. People are going to have kids. We're going to, society is going to have overpopulation in, those areas. You're going to have extreme poverty. You're going to have all kinds of problems. How long is that going to last? A generation, maybe two. And then parents are going to start teaching their kids, keep your legs closed.
All right. Different subject, babe.
Yeah. Anyway. Yeah, we don't get, but the third one is the whole, if you're a biological man, are you a woman? And that's the third subject that I get on, but she knows I get real passionate.
Yeah, that's why I was trying to just give him facial expressions. He was just looking at me, so I had to physically say it because he was starting to get.
I do get passionate.
He does, but I try to let him.
But I try and be reasonable about it. I understand.
No, he is.
There's a.
He understands other people's. That other people have their own views, and as long as he doesn't try to force his on people, and he expects other people to not try to force theirs on him. Because
I want an honest conversation.
Other people make good points.
Absolutely.
But this isn't the place to get passionate,
right.
baby.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's important.
Yeah.
Like I had that conversation with Claude. You can't have those kinds of conversations online.
Yeah.
Because immediately people start trash talking.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like they attack you.
Yeah.
They don't attack the issue or the position.
Ad hominem or
you are
logical
a
fallacies.
bigot. You are a racist, and you can't really do anything about those labels. People put those labels on you, and it's like,
yeah, they don't have a meaning.
I can't defend myself. I can't do anything because you see me as that. So that's that. Right.
Right.
But it's good to have open conversations.
Right.
Differing viewpoints.
Yep.
And to respectfully discuss the issues because that's where learning occurs.
Yeah.
Yes.
If you can't come to, that's the biggest issue I think with the political divide, is that people are so passionately opposed about everything that we can't come together in an
together.
agreement. What is the best solution for the most people?
Right.
Can we
It's
agree
hard.
to disagree? Can we?
There's just not a lot of adults out there who know how to act grown up when it comes to stuff like that.
Yeah.
There isn't. I will say one thing political. I was reading an article, and Trump had, one of his debate things, or he was speaking somewhere, and a lot of people who voted for Biden and a lot of Democrats were actually there cheering him on.
Was this the one in New York?
I think so.
Yeah. I guess he got a lot
Yeah.
of people.
Yeah.
Everybody was like,
I was
it's not just people
surprised.
coming from all over the place. It's actual people in New York. They're like, no,
Yeah. They had a beautiful picture of just a group of people from all ethnicities. I can't say that word right now.
Ethnicities,
Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
But yeah, and they were smiling. They weren't being aggressive. There was no snarls, but it was a beautiful picture.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was reading. I'm all like, oh,
Yeah, it is super important to
Yeah.
have thoughtful, honest conversations. I mean,
yeah.
the whole birth control thing, or talking about whether it's a human life. It is, but let's understand the complexity of it.
Yeah, you have to be willing to hear both sides, and that's kind of where I was going
Right.
with this Trump thing. Is you've
Yeah.
got people who are willing to listen to him, just like they're going to go listen to the Democrat. It's you have to be open.
Yeah.
And the way I look at it, he's very Republican. I want to vote for whoever's going to be the best
Right.
to lead this
Do the best job.
country.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's going to be the challenge with this election.
Mm-hmm.
I voted for Trump in the last 2 elections. I believe the election was stolen. And maybe you can cover it up and say it wasn't.
Yeah.
But
Well, there's
I think
always
it is.
there's always interference.
Yeah.
Always.
I think it is.
There's
think
never.
we
yeah.
had it in Kentucky.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I think there was.
at this point, I don't know if either man is fit for
Yeah,
the job.
that's definitely a concern.
I think they should both be hanging out.
I tell you that one of the things.
in a retirement center playing dominoes together. At
You know,
this
when people
point.
say
I'm not gonna lie.
if people try and dismiss and say, "Oh, the election wasn't stolen," well, let's not use the word stolen. Let's look at it like, okay, the whole Steele dossier thing, that's fake. We found out that was completely untrue. And what was the other thing? There was something about Hunter Biden's laptop. And there's a lot of people that are like, well, if I would have known about that, and if they would have actually not covered that up, and I would have known, I would have voted for Trump instead of Biden.
But
And
it's
like,
they can't go back and change their vote.
Yeah, they can't go
so
back.
now we just have this year's, and it's.
But I'm okay
don't
with
know what's gonna
whoever's
happen.
in. I mean, it is what it is.
Yeah.
It's a process.
yeah.
Whoever's in office has no influence
Right.
over my life whatsoever.
But
No.
I'm not going to lie. If Trump gets elected, I really, really, really want to see somebody scream at the sky in person. I want to see it happen. That picture on the internet from 2016 when that woman's like, "Ah," I want to see it. I want to see it happen. Somebody's going to melt down, and I'm just going to be like,
Yeah.
how you doing over there? I mean, I didn't melt down when they said that Biden had won the presidency, and I'm like, okay, well,
We just said.
I hope he does a good job.
No, we said, no. And then we hope he does.
yeah. I mean, it's I want
I mean, we
whoever's
can't change anything once it's happened. That's what
Right.
people don't understand. They are so frustrated after the fact, but you can't change it. Being angry, being violent
Yeah.
isn't going to change
No.
anything. It's just going to make
That only
it
affects
worse.
you.
Yeah.
And it makes you feel bad.
Yeah,
That's right.
And it makes you more angry, and it makes your neighbor angry. It makes your neighbor's family angry, and it's just a huge cycle. And then we end up where we're at right now.
That's the most beautiful thing that has happened to me since I did hypnosis is I have become so aware of all of this stuff that
You're like this.
I'm like, nope, I don't want that thing attaching to me.
Yeah.
I don't want it.
I don't. I very rarely, like, it's very rare that I say anything about politics because I don't. Like, he'll get in it, and I'm like, yeah, I'll just be doing. No, I act like I'm listening to him.
Sometimes I look back at me in my COVID years, and I'm like, man, I was messed up. I could have done so much better.
Yeah, but you can't look back.
We can learn from the past.
Yeah, you can't look back.
You can look in the rear view mirror of the car. It's small because you're only supposed to glance.
Yeah, but
that's good.
But
like
you
that.
can't do this because
you got to look through the windshield because that's where you're going.
Yeah, you gotta look forward. I like that.
If you did know the answer, what would it be? Man, I'm using that.
Yeah.
I'm so using that.
Yeah, I like to say you can't change yesterday. You can work on today, and you can move forward for tomorrow.
Yeah.
But you can't. Yeah, that's like I tell people that all the time when they're like, "Yesterday," I'm all like, "Yesterday's yesterday, man."
Yeah.
You know, today's gonna be tomorrow's yesterday. You just got to keep moving forward.
That's right.
And there's times I have to remind myself of that as well.
Very much.
Yes.
Let's wrap this up.
Yep.
Yeah.
We got
I
it.
gotta go to the bathroom.
Thank
anyways.
you for coming. This has
Yeah,
been,
thank you.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And how many different episodes of your little shorts do you have on? And do you have a YouTube channel?
I have a YouTube channel. I just restarted. So here's the thing. I restarted everything at the beginning of this year.
Okay.
I completely dropped a hydrogen bomb on all my social media, and I'm starting from scratch.
All right.
Some people would be like, why would you do that? Because I needed to separate myself from the people that were producing negative energy in my life. And specifically the people from church that kept saying, you're evil, you need to repent, stop doing this.
Yeah.
And so I purposely sent out an email to people who are on my list. I said, hey, I'm going to talk about professional development. I'm going to talk about hypnosis. I'm going to talk about God. If any of that bothers you, don't follow me. But if you want to come along for the ride, you're more than welcome. And I had some people follow. So my whole point with social media today is I want people to intentionally follow me because they're interested in the things I talk about.
Right.
Yep.
And I will intentionally follow you and support you as well. It's all about intentionality. So my YouTube channel, Jason M. Smith, I think it's jason.m.smith42. That's where you can find it. And so far, I just have my different stories that I've posted up there. I plan to do more. Even the stories I'm creating for this contest, I'm going to repurpose and reuse as either blog posts, or maybe I might turn them into a book one day. I don't know.
Okay.
But they are going to be available on the YouTube channel as well.
All right.
Just because I want to practice and I want to get this information out there. And even though that these are going to be tailored to the specific winners,
Right.
if somebody else is having a problem in that same area, then
Right.
I can help more people.
Excellent.
So that's where you can find a lot of my stuff. It's on YouTube, and then of course I'm on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. I'm on all of them.
Okay.
All of them.
All right.
All right. Well, we'll add you.
Yeah, we'll put some of the links
Yep,
in the description so that people can see it.
Yep.
Yep.
Awesome.
Sounds great.
We'll do that way. You guys reach out to him. Reach out to us if you want to reach out to him.
Yeah.
Ray's here. He just sent a message.
Right,
I don't know if they're in the house.
Yeah, they are.
Oh, okay.
So,
Hi. All right.
All right. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. We'll see you next time.
Yes. Thank you. And again, thank you for coming. All right. Where's my...
Click a button.
We hope you enjoyed today's show, and thanks for listening to the Louder Tales podcast. Don't forget to subscribe, and we'll see you next time.